What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 7TT Chapter 156 Levi's Movements? Fight on top, please subscribe. If it is said that Ace's public execution was because Levi had his own intelligence and got the news in advance. But, the future of Whitebeard revealed by Levi cannot be explained by knowing the news in advance. Levi, what he said was so detailed that even Stacy and Bonnie could picture it in their heads. Are you talking nonsense? Stacy looked at Levi's slightly narrowed eyes. She didn't think Levi was a man who talked nonsense. Did you really read the script? There was a glint in Stacy's blue eyes. She stood up, looked at Levi and chuckled. How do you know this? Didn't I tell you? I got the script. Levi looked at the blue sky and chuckled. When Stacy heard this, she smiled and said, if I had a script, I would definitely make trouble after knowing this. Hear the words. Levi looked at Stacy and met her blue eyes that seemed to be able to speak. Go and make a mess. For example, I don't know if Whitebeard's future will change, but if Blackbeard is really like you said, I won't let him succeed. A smile with strong ambition appeared on Stacy's face. Let Blackbeard reap the benefits. How is it possible? Blackbeard has been dormant in the White League for many years, and he seizes the opportunity to immediately betray Whitebeard. Stacy has heard this. There is no doubt that Blackbeard is as ambitious as her. And to deal with such a person, Stacy knew that if the other party's plan was shattered at such a critical moment, Blackbeard would definitely be miserable. It's very interesting to think about it. The smile on Stacy's face became more and more brilliant, making people shudder. It seems interesting. Levi smiled lightly and focused his gaze on the large broadcast screen in front of him. At the same time, as the focus of today's world, Ace's execution place was publicly executed, Naval Headquarters Marineford. Huge headquarters fortress, fully armed. There is a Marine standing at every fire point, fully armed and ready to attack. On the outside of the fortress, 50 warships guarded the area. A total of 100,000 elite soldiers are invested in today's battle. Even Gecko Moria, Mahawk, and Empress Hancock from the 7 warlords of the sea were recruited to stand at the forefront of the battlefield. In the center of the fortress, a conspicuous high platform was erected. Ace, restrained by torture instruments, pressed on the top of the high platform. Under the high platform, 3 seats were placed, with 3 figures sitting on them, Wanjie exuding a strong and palpitating aura. They are the highest combat power of naval headquarters, 3 Admiral, Sakazuki, Kuzan, and Perusalino. Now, the 3 admirals were sitting on the commanding heights, overlooking the battlefield 10,000 meters below. And on the high platform, advertisement a figure that looked slightly older but still as tall and strong as an iron tower stood tall. He is Sengoku. Holding a phone bug in his hand, he said heavily and slowly a sentence destined to shock the world. Ace, your father is Pirate King Gold D. Roger. These words are like a violent wind and earthquake sweeping the world, shaking the whole world. Until this moment, only the world knows the significance of Ace's public execution. This is to kill all the descendants with demon blood, to cut off the signs of evil, and to strangle the next pirate king in the cradle. The significance is self-evident. After saying this, Sengoku looked around Marineford, which was under total martial law. Everything's ready. Sengoku converged his eyes, walked down the platform with a heavy heart, and asked the intelligence officer. Have you noticed Shank's movements? At this point, Sengoku paused slightly, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. And, Levi, where is his movement? The messenger soldier took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Shanks collided with Kaido in New World not long ago. The specific circumstances are unknown. Levi is still in the Golden City, located in New World, and has no action for the time being. Hear this. Sengoku felt less stressed. Fortunately, Levi didn't move. If he leads his men to assist Whitebeard, today Marine will face the 2 strongest men in the world, the old and the new, the 2 Emperor pirates. Think of this. Sengoku glanced at Garp beside him, his head lowered and silent. He opened his mouth, but in the end no words came out. After all, Ace is Garp's grandson, and Garp truly treats Ace as his grandson. But this is the current situation. This is not the time to talk about personal affairs. Ace must be executed. Sengoku couldn't speak and couldn't speak. We can only let Garp accept this reality, and just at this time. Outside Marineford, at the top of the towering watchtower, the alarm was suddenly sounded. Sengoku suddenly looked up. A flash of light flashed across his eyes like a shooting star. On the distant sea, advertisement pirate ships appeared one after another. The Great Vortex Spider Scarred, the Ranger Nidoma, Little Oz, and many other great pirates who have become famous in the New World appear. A total of 43 pirate ships and 43 pirate groups. Kill, rescue Ace, brother Ace, here we come. They came menacingly, the weapons they held in their hands shone coldly in the sun, and their shouts of killing rose into the night. This moment, soon even the sun in the sky seemed to be chilled by Mopei's murderous intention. Attention everyone, Whitebeard's men have arrived. Sengoku held the phone bug in his hand and suddenly shouted in a low voice. This moment, Countless people glanced around, looking for Moby DK among the many pirate groups. Righto. No, among the 43 large ships ahead, there is no Moby DK at all. Boom, almost. Nuo Jiao Jiao, in the next second. In Marineford, which is shaped like a crescent bay, the sea is turbulent and rolling, and it looks like a giant thing is rising from it. Huge waves rolled up one after another, and the splashing seawater rushed to the sky and fell like rain. Coming. Sakazuki suddenly looked up. Deep in his eyes, there seemed to be lava flowing. Extremely hot, and where he was staring, the center of Crescent Bay. The huge Moby DK protrudes from the sea and descends on Marineford. Gu la 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 la. That tall figure stood on the bow of the ship, and his laughter shook all directions. He is the #1 man in the world with the ability to destroy heaven and earth. Whitebeard. Beside him, the 4 captains looked at each other. The Whitebeard pirates use coded deep-sea stealth methods. Coming to Marineford. Chapter 157. Levi disappears suddenly, one after another disrupting the situation. Please subscribe. Whitebeard's appearance announces that the summit war has completely begun. Newgate, you really dared to come. Sakazuki stared at the figure in the distance. He bit his cigar and spoke in a low and hoarse voice. Heat surged through his body, and lava rolled over him, covering his broken wrist. Magma arms suddenly formed. Oh yeah, let's finish it early. Perusalino twisted his neck and made a crackling sound. Kuzan did not speak, but looked directly at the white group in the distance. His body was filled with white air, and frost slowly spread, covering his body. Next second, boom, 3 admirals moved at the same time. Fire, light, and ice spread across the battlefield at this moment, becoming the most dazzling focus. Whitebeard stood on the bow of the ship, his majestic body like an iron tower stepped out step by step, and stood at the front of the white group. Ace, wait for us. He laughed boldly, the sound was heard in all directions, he raised his fist, and the power of destroying the world burst out from his old body. With just one punch, a shockwave swept through the world and shook the surrounding areas. The battle that the whole world is paying attention to reaches its climax as soon as it comes. Sabaody Archipelago. All reporters who paid close attention to this battle exclaimed at this moment, 493. Whitebeard is coming. ITB. 73. Some reporters' eyes widened slightly, cold sweat fell from their foreheads, and the hand holding the penholder was shaking. In the broadcast screen. Every move Whitebeard makes causes the sea to roll and the sky to crack. Even if you rest the screen, you can feel its powerful pressure. Is this really the old and decrepit Whitebeard? Someone swallowed hard and said almost subconsciously. Whitebeard, the #1 man in the world at this age, has this kind of strength, so how powerful is Levi, the #1 man in the new world? As soon as these words came out, the entire Sabaody Archipelago was silent. It wasn't until dozens of seconds passed that a reporter spoke tremblingly. There was no intelligence that Levi and Whitebeard were in contact. I just hope that Levi won't come today. At this moment, almost all reporters have this thought in their minds. Levi, don't come, otherwise, can this execution continue? At the same time, blood and fire were flying in Marineford's Crescent Bay, warships roaring and firing, pirate ships charging fearlessly, and the roaring and rolling sea. The war was about to break out, and the collision between marine and pirates was so fierce that the sea was dyed red with blood. Next to the high platform, Advertisement Garp's eyes were deep, staring at everything below. He saw 43 pirate ships break through the defense line and come to the inner bay, and saw Skuyard stabbing Whitebeard in the back. I also saw Luffy coming from Impel Down. Garp frowned slightly, and there was unconcealable fatigue on his old face. Luffy is finally here. His 2 grandsons both appeared in this battle. Behind him is the marine flag fluttering in the wind. Beside him are his 2 beloved grandchildren. At this moment, Garp had mixed feelings in his heart. The majestic marine hero actually felt briefly confused. He's still here. Sengoku held the phone bug in his hand, and the seagull above his head fluttered its wings slightly. Now, his expression was extremely ugly. The criminals in Impel Down all appeared. This is undoubtedly a destabilizing factor on the battlefield. Sengoku frowned and looked back at Garp, who had his head lowered and a tangled expression on his face. Heart Chunin couldn't help but sigh. He knew that this was an extremely difficult choice for Garp. But no matter what, as a marine, Garp had to choose and had to choose. However, at this time, the messenger soldier ran quickly from a distance, his face was anxious, and he rushed to Sengoku's side. Before he could stand still, he said directly, Marshal, there is news from the secret line of the CP agency, Levi, disappeared. What did you say? Sengoku's eyes suddenly widened, BHDE. When he heard the news, he felt a strong sense of foreboding. Levi, disappeared. Where will he go? Marineford? Sengoku was unsure, and his heart became more solemn. At this time, the resourceful general actually had a ridiculous sense of luck in his heart. A lucky hope that Levi will not come to Marineford and interfere in this battle. And while thinking about it, Sengoku saw Luffy break through the siege and reach the high platform. Mr. 3 used the fruit's power to release Ace's shackles. Fire Fist Ace, regain your freedom, advertisement. Not good. Sengoku's eyes narrowed and his face looked extremely ugly. His attention was briefly drawn to Levi's disappearance. It actually caused Luffy to take advantage of this opportunity to save Ace. However, the next moment, a figure whose whole body was burning with molten material flashed out, standing behind Ace, and an extremely high temperature, blasted towards Ace. Boom! The magma rolled, and Ace was pierced through the chest on the spot, and the look in his eyes disappeared little by little. See this scene. Sengoku slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Sakazuki's shot was a sure kill, and Ace's chance of survival was cut off. Half of the purpose of this war has been achieved. Suddenly, Sengoku suddenly thought of something. He turned back and looked at Garp behind him. Dong, dong, dong. Garp walked towards Sakazuki step by step. On his body, a violent and suppressed aura spurted out like an explosion of fire. Garp, calm down. Sengoku's eyes widened and he immediately rushed out, holding down Garp's shoulders and suppressing his actions with brute force. Boom. Even the ground under Garp's feet trembled at this moment, leaving 2 deep pits. Sengoku, you'd better keep stopping me, otherwise I will definitely kill Sakazuki. Garp stared at Sakazuki's back. He said this sentence almost in a crossword. And at this time, ha 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 ha, Dad, everyone, we meet again. Blackbeard's rampant laughter echoed throughout Marineford. He brings the vicious criminals from Impel Down to Marineford. The giant battleship, San Juan Wolf, appeared behind Marineford's fortress. Its huge body was almost as high as the fortress. It really looked like a mountain, blocking all sunlight. Impel Down prisoners escape. Blackbeard leads a group of vicious criminals, and attacks Whitebeard like a mantis stalking a cicada and an oriole behind it. Blackbeard, teach. Sengoku took a deep breath, unable to suppress the look of anger on his face. A spoiler appears. Blackbeard, this ambitious pirate, finally showed his fangs at this time. Sengoku's eyelids twitched wildly as another unexpected factor appeared. While he was angry, he was also deeply solemn. Uncertain things happen one after another. Chapter 158. The Fifth Emperor arrives at Marineford. Please subscribe. Blackbeard came to the battlefield, and this disruptor who appeared halfway completely swayed the balance of this battle. Teach. The captivating light in Whitebeard's eyes flashed away, and the low roar in his mouth resounded through the sky, like a late king overlooking the mountains and rivers, tragic and desolate. His iron fists were only half an inch away from Blackbeard. Stopped. Can't fall anymore. The 2 most tragic things in the world are the beauty's sunset and the hero's twilight. And Whitebeard at this moment ushered in his own twilight. He finally reached the end of the road. That old and decaying body could no longer hold up, so he swung this punch. The strongest man in the world, an aging legend, the pinnacle of the old era. Whitebeard, fallen. Ha 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 ha, thief, this era no longer belongs to Whitebeard. From now on, it will become the era of my Blackbeard. Teach. Blackbeard spread his arms and looked up to the sky, laughing wildly. This scheming hero made a declaration to the world. On the high platform, Sengoku watched all this and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ace's execution is successful, Whitebeard is dead. All this has settled and is a foregone conclusion. This battle, which cost Marine everything, was finally won. Sengoku's thoughts were complicated at this moment. Joy? It's more of a pity. Whitebeard, a legendary figure from the previous era, his fall means the end of the old era. It's Roger's time, it's Whitebeard's time, and it's Sengoku's time too. His era, with Whitebeard's death, was lonely. All the captains of the Whitebeard pirates couldn't hold back the tears in their eyes and burst into tears. Margao stared at Whitebeard's back, as if he wanted to keep this scene in his heart and never want to forget it. Whitebeard, even in death, still did not take a step back. At the last moment of his life, he was still the father who shielded his children from wind and rain. Retreat. Margao gritted his teeth and read out these 2 words from between his teeth. The Whitebeard pirates are defeated. Advertisement. In the distance, Blackbeard walked step by step towards Whitebeard's standing body, with a wild laugh on his face. Ha 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 ha, Dad, I will inherit your power. Blackbeard had a strong look of greed flashing in his eyes. As long as he took one more step forward, he could get Whitebeard's power. The strongest attack fruit, the power of shock fruit. Behind him, all the crew members had sinister and evil smiles on their faces. Soon, their crew, Blackbeard, will gain new powers. The power of the world's strongest man. It is only a matter of time before the Blackbeard pirates ascend to the throne of the 4 emperors, and they will also become a member of the 4 emperors' pirates. In fact, Fan Oka even thought about the future of sailing across the sea and dominating the new world. Raitu, just the next second, Blackbeard's steps paused suddenly. An unprecedented sense of crisis suddenly arose in his heart. Even, stand on his head with hair all over his body. Chang. A sharp sword light spread across the sky and the ground, becoming the only light at this moment. The landing point of the sword light, Blackbeard pirates. Boom, a terrifying hurricane swept across, and a powerful shockwave centered on the location of the Blackbeard pirates, surging and shaking in all directions. This moment, countless people on the battlefield turned their eyes. Sengoku, Garp, Mihawk, Hancock, Margao, everyone's eyes widened because of one thing. They saw it clearly, when he was only 1 step away from Whitebeard. Blackbeard flew out on the spot as if struck by lightning. The careerist who killed Whitebeard was actually blown away by a sword light falling from the sky in front of everyone. Along with Blackbeard, all the vicious criminals imprisoned in Impel Down LV.6 Eternal Hell were also flown upside down at this moment. Huh? Surprise flashed across Mihawk's amber eyes, and then his expression changed. He felt a familiar breath, on the high platform. Sengoku suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. Advertisement in that cloudless blue sky. A tall figure stood out of thin air. He was like an unsheathed heavenly sword, and like the Supreme King who came to Marineford, standing horizontally in the air, exuding an alluring aura. Behind him, a white coat billowed in the wind, like billowing white clouds. Sengoku's eyes suddenly widened. There was a look of uncontrollable shock on his face. He recognized the man who appeared above Marineford at a glance. The fifth emperor, Levi, this man, who was full of variables, finally came. This moment, numerous Marines' hearts sank and they took a breath of cold air. Levi stood in the air, overlooking the battlefield below. A pair of dark and deep eyes turned slightly and fell on Whitebeard. The footage from the sky was instantly broadcast to all parts of the world. Sabaody Archipelago suddenly made a sensation, and floating bubbles exploded in the air due to the sound of people screaming. Oh my god, it's Levi. Did Levi, the king of the new world, intervene after all? Am I dazzled? The thing I least wanted to see happened. Can anyone tell me that all this is fake? Countless people's expressions changed, and no one wanted to see Levi appear. Even a reporter who wants big news. The Sea Emperor Whitebeard finally fell, and the Devil's Bloodline Ace was also executed. At this time Levi appears. Who knows what changes will occur? What does Levi want to do by interfering in this war? Is he trying to help the Whitebeard pirates? I heard that the Whitebeard pirates have contact with Levi. Is this rumor true? A reporter swallowed his saliva repeatedly, only feeling that in his heart there is an endless chill. And it wasn't just reporters who were sluggish about Levi. Even the members of the Whitebeard pirates were stunned by this. Levi. Why are you here? Margao opened his mouth slightly and said this sentence in a very wrong way. Outsiders only knew that the Whitebeard pirates had contact with Levi, but only Margao and the others knew that they asked Levi for help. But in fact, Levi refused. This war is between the Whitebeard pirates and Marine, and has nothing to do with Levi. Levi. Why are you here? Levi. Sakazuki stared at the figure in the sky, with uncontrollable anger emerging on his face. Magma was rolling all over his body, as if magma was erupting from his pupils. Oh, yeah, someone who shouldn't have appeared has appeared, and we are in big trouble. Perusolino put his hands in his pockets, and his face. A rare look of caution and vigilance. I'm speechless, I'm about to vomit, the power went out again, I don't know what's wrong with the circuit, it burned again after repairing it, it burned again after repairing it, I came to the internet cafe all night to write this chapter, sorry QAQ. Long time. Advertisement chapter 159 He is the only emperor on the sea, please subscribe. In the air, Levi's appearance instantly became the focus of everyone's attention. Is that Levi? Standing in the center of the battlefield, Moria, who was huge and horned like a demon, raised his head, and the corners of his mouth cracked in a strange arc. Meet again. Mihawk's amber eyes flashed, his lips were slightly opened, and he whispered to himself. Sure enough, that familiar scent from before, was Levi. Hancock also looked sideways at this time and glanced at Levi twice more. She knew about Levi's existence. When she was on Daughter's Island, her mother-in-law talked about this person all day long, all talking about Levi's power and mystery. Hancock was tired of hearing what her mother-in-law said, but she also realized deeply. Levi, the fifth emperor, has now become a terrifying man who can shake up the world. Among the 5 sea emperors, Levi is the most powerful. Scattered throughout the battlefield, the prisoners who escaped from Impel Down and followed Buggy couldn't help but tremble when they saw Levi's face clearly. Is it him? The devil-like man appears again? I broke into Impel Down by myself, slaughtered the 4th floor, and even eternal hell came and went at will. Even these ferocious criminals in Impel Down looked frightened at this moment. Trembling uncontrollably, their bodies were weak in fear, and they were about to collapse to the ground at any moment. They couldn't help but think of the blood-stained earth that day when Impel fell. The fear that Levi brought to them was more frightening than the darkness of Impel Down itself. Boss Buggy, what should we do now? A prisoner trembled, looked at Buggy who was following him, and asked for help. At this moment, Buggy was like a stone statue, standing in the same position as before. Like a statue, he himself was already frightened. Buggy's mouth opened wide, and his saliva was flowing down in this extreme horror. Levi. Saw him again. Levi's back is reflected in Buggy's pupils. His tall and straight figure has my invincible spirit, just like when Levi stood in the air, single-handedly defeating the Red Line. Not far away, Mr. 3 felt a chill rising from the soles of his feet, all the hairs on his body stood upside down. He quickly lowered his head, not daring to look at Levi's back for fear of being noticed by him. Advertisement Mr. 3 also witnessed with his own eyes the atrocities Levi committed when he broke into Impel Down. And at this time, Levi stood in the air, looking around the entire battlefield, and spoke with a faint smile. Dear acquaintances, long time no see. His voice was calm, revealing a leisurely tone without any sense of tension or crisis. It seems that the place where Levi comes is not the battlefield between Marine and Four Emperors that attracts worldwide attention, but a relaxing back garden. Levi, what are you here to do? To fight against Whitebeard? Kuzan stared at Levi in the sky and spoke in a deep voice. His words vibrated out, which was especially clear when everything was quiet. Levi stepped down from the sky in one step and landed next to Whitebeard's standing body. At this moment, the Blackbeard pirate group was blown away, and there was an open space around Whitebeard. No one dared to approach under Levi's intimidation. No, Levi looked at Kuzan, shook his head slightly, and then looked at Whitebeard's body next to him. There was a special color flashing in those deep eyes. This old man who is the #1 in the world has finally reached this final step. Levi converged his gaze and looked at Margao in the distance. Their eyes were all red, and tears could not stop flowing. To be honest, I really like you, old man. There are only 2 old men in this world that I can admire. One is you and the other is Garp. Levi looked sideways at Whitebeard, who was clearly standing in the middle of the battlefield, but seemed to be in a deserted place, speaking softly to himself. Quiet. No one takes action at this time. No one dares to move. Both pirates and marines were extremely solemn at this moment. Even Sengoku, who was standing on the high platform, was just frowning at the moment, neither speaking nor making any movement. This scene. It shocks the hearts of everyone who sees it. Rely on your own power to intimidate this battlefield and stop the fierce fighting. No one dares to move. What kind of style is this? Advertisement? This is Levi. Jinbei couldn't help but whisper, the Emperor of the New World. No, he can no longer be called Emperor now. He is the Emperor of the Sea, and the only Emperor. Undoubtedly the strongest man. It's not an exaggeration to say that the world will let him run amok. Jinbei's voice was low, but the words he spoke shocked everyone around him. Isn't this too exaggerated? Lightning in the Revolutionary Army's eyes flashed, his mouth opened, and he hesitated to say this. No, this? Maybe not an exaggeration. Ivankov, the Demon King, said in a low voice. After coming out of Impel Down, he found an opportunity to contact the dragon. Dragon. Mentioned Levi. Ivankov has a heavy heart. Judging from Long's tone, he attaches great importance to Levi. It can even be said that he is afraid of him. This is enough to show how powerful Levi is. If Levi hadn't been carefree and laid back, if he had the ambition to conquer the world, he might have become a myth long ago and become a being who unified the new world, surpassing Roger. I don't know for sure. A prisoner's lips trembled. He said these words that shocked everyone. This moment, no one said anything. Maybe in their hearts, some people agreed and some did not. But in any case, all of this is enough to show the power of Levi. Far away. Kuzan frowned slightly when he heard Levi's words. Isn't it? Levi is not fighting for Whitebeard. 0.4 Then what is his purpose for coming here? And just when this idea came to Kuzan's mind, Levi turned around, looked at Kuzan, and whispered, I. As he spoke, Levi paused and looked to the side, where Blackbeard, who was covered in blood, fell to the ground and struggled to get up, was seriously injured. This moment, a smile appeared on Levi's face. My goal is them. His eyes were fixed on Blackbeard, instantly making Blackbeard's whole body stand on end. Blackbeard is a hero who is not afraid of anything. Even Whitebeard dares to betray him, and even dares to attack and kill him. In this brief moment, the urge to escape inevitably arises in my heart. Advertisement Chapter 160 I'm here just to discuss world government, please subscribe. Levi's target is Blackbeard. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expressions changed and they were all shocked. Blackbeard, have you offended Levi? Jinbei's eyes trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but start thinking, he once targeted Levi, and now Levi has traveled thousands of miles to come to Marineford to kill Blackbeard? Speaking of this guess, even Jinbei himself was shocked. Levi's arrival at Marineford is not just a long way away. More importantly, this is the battlefield between Marine and the Four Emperors. In order to kill those who have targeted him, do you even intervene in a battlefield of this level without any scruples? Jinbei, your analysis is correct. This possibility is indeed very high. No, this should be the reason why he came here. Ivankov took a deep breath. Don't forget, Levi's character is like this. No one can stop the people he wants to kill. The murder case of Impel Down is the best proof. That is to say, even if this battle represents the collision between Marine and the top pirates, Levi is still here. Is this the 5th Emperor today? Lightning's eyes widened and he stared blankly. With Levi. Vaguely, he seemed to have understood who Levi was. Should we leave quickly? A bitter smile appeared at the corner of Jinbei's mouth. He hugged Luffy around his waist. Luffy's chest had been penetrated. Blood was still flowing. No one knows what will happen next. In order to kill the Kim pirates, the entire Impel Down was bleeding. So what will Levi do to target Blackbeard this time? On the high platform, Sengoku was stunned when he listened to Levi's words. Not only him, but also Garp and he were stunned. Others may not understand, but they know best. The list given to Levi. There was absolutely no Blackbeard on it. It was handed over to Levi by Sengoku himself, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. Before this, Blackbeard had never targeted Levi. If Blackbeard's name is on that list, the world government will definitely take Blackbeard's position as Shichibukai away from him as soon as that list appears. Because there is no way the world government would let a dead man do 7 warlords of the sea. As long as it appears on that list, it means death is certain. It is impossible for anyone to change this result. The world government will not let Shichibukai die at the hands of Levi again, and there will never be a second Doflamingo. The activities in everyone's hearts are not as intense as facing Levi's Blackbeard. At this moment, Blackbeard only has palpitations in his heart. Advertisement: his body was bleeding, and severe pain was constantly stimulating his nerves. Just one blow to seriously injure yourself. Blackbeard's eyes widened, reflecting Levi's figure. From Levi, he felt the oppression that surpassed his father Whitebeard. Behind her, Caitlin Deem struggled to get up from the ground, raising her blood-stained face. After seeing Levi's face clearly, her eyes narrowed in an instant, like needles. It's the guy who came to jail. She recognized Levi's identity and her face was extremely horrified. Teach, do you have a grudge against him? Caitlin Deem turned her head and looked at Blackbeard, her expression changing several times. She knew Levi's horror. This man wanted to break into Impel Down and kill people just because of a tomb, without any scruples at all. It's not an exaggeration to say he's a lunatic. Did you touch his family's tomb? Catherine Deem asked again, feeling withdrawn in her heart. Only by meeting Levi personally will you know how powerful he is. One blow severely damaged the entire Blackbeard pirates. Katarine Deem also knows that Levi has a weird way to make people commit suicide, but so far he has not even used that power. It is absolutely irrational to collide with such a person. Katarine Deem's face was ugly, and the faces of the prisoners behind her were equally ashen. At this time, they have begun to wonder in their hearts, is following Blackbeard a wrong choice? I have never done anything like this, and I have never even interacted with him. Blackbeard gritted his teeth, his face turned black and blue, and he spoke in a low voice. Targeting Levi, touching his family tomb, how can it be? I haven't even met Levi, although, before that, Blackbeard remembered Levi's name firmly, and it was impossible to say that he was not interested in Levi's blood. But, isn't it too late to do anything? Why did Levi come to the door at this time? Blackbeard couldn't figure this out even if he thought about it. He took a deep breath, looked at Levi and tried to force a smile. Levi, I have no grudge against you, right? I don't remember ever offending you. You really haven't offended me. I came here just to discuss you and the world government. Levi listened to Blackbeard's words with a faint smile on his face, without any concealment, and said these words straightforwardly. Advertisement: as soon as these words came out, Blackbeard was stunned. Margao was stunned. Jinbei was stunned. Countless people were stunned at this moment. Just to discuss Blackbeard, discussed world government? You know, this is Naval Headquarters Marineford. Speak ill of the world government in front of Naval Headquarters? Behind the broadcast screen, all the reporters paused at this moment, the pens in their hands froze, and they had no idea whether they should record this sentence. Isn't this too tough? An elderly reporter stared wide-eyed. He had read all the news about Levi and thought he had a certain understanding of Levi, but now it seems that that is just the tip of the iceberg. Who else in the world can speak openly about world government like Levi? It's over. I seem to be a fan of Levi. It's so powerful and long. The young reporter's heart was beating fast. Admiring the strong is everyone's instinct. There is no doubt that Levi is an absolute powerhouse. What nonsense are you talking about? The old reporter next to him knocked him on the head. Who is Levi? He is the Emperor of the Sea, a great pirate who does all kinds of evil. Quote. World government is not a good bird either. The young reporter shrank his neck and spoke submissively. Shut up. Upon hearing this, the old reporter quickly made a silencing gesture, fearing that his words would be heard. And at this moment, in Marineford, after hearing Levi's words, many Marines looked extremely ugly. Strong anger appeared on Sakazuki's resolute face. Not that Sakazuki defends world government very much. Simply because Levi's action is provoking Marine and trampling on the honor and justice of all Marines. Quote. The dark red magma is rolling, and Sakazuki is on the verge of bursting into rage. And at this time, a bright flash of light passed in front of Sakazuki. But it was Porsalino. We can resume normal updates tomorrow. Sorry for the past few days. Chapter 161: The distance Blackbeard cannot cross. Please subscribe. Abu. The bright flash of light dissipated, revealing Porsalino's figure. He raised his hand and stood in front of Sakazuki. Don't send it away. The corners of Porsalino's mouth twitched, but he didn't say what he meant. Oh, Sakazuki, calm down. Porsalino's tone was calm. They had been in contact with Levi several times and were well aware of the huge gap in strength between them. Since there is no opponent in a head-on battle, it is better to wait and see what happens. At least, it's Blackbeard who has the headache now. Porsalino's eyes shimmered under his sunglasses. Levi said that the target is Blackbeard. It is impossible to just see Blackbeard unhappy. Underneath this, there should be other reasons. Sakazuki was stopped. The anger in his eyes subsided slightly, but he did not insist on taking action. After all, although he is stubborn, it does not mean that he cannot adapt at all. Right now, the people who have enough conflicts with Levi are the Blackbeard pirates. Levi's words also shook the minds of Margao and others who were planning to retreat. Margao clenched his fist. His eyes widened slightly, staring at Levi's back. Although Levi said before that it was not to stand up for the white group, but when Levi said that casually, just to discuss Blackbeard, Margao and everyone in the white group couldn't help but get goosebumps. Cool. It's like a bucket of cold water pouring over your whole body on a hot day, and an incomparable sense of pleasure surges through your heart. What they hate most now is Blackbeard. Even if Marine is fighting fiercely, he will be ranked behind. Blackbeard, the biggest betrayer of the white group, killed Thatch and killed his father Whitebeard. To him, Bai Tuan was filled with hatred to the core. Why? When Blackbeard heard Levi's words, he felt like he couldn't breathe, and he was so frustrated that he exploded. There is no hatred, just to disgust me. I know you want to swallow Whitebeard's ability and possess his fruit, so I came to stop it. Levi stared at Blackbeard and whispered these words, which were like a megaton bomb detonating. Quote. Exclamation mark quote. This moment, countless people were shocked. Advertisement. In Marineford, the air seems to be frozen at this moment. The words spoken by Levi were as shocking as the moment when it was announced that Ace was of Roger's bloodline. Swallow. Fruit ability. Sengoku stood on the high platform, his pupils suddenly narrowed, and his face was full of horror. Before this, they didn't understand why Blackbeard raided Marineford. Just to kill Whitebeard. Although this is possible, in fact the cost is too huge and inconsistent with the benefits. And now, Sengoku finally knows the real reason why Blackbeard is here. The ability to devour Whitebeard. This purpose is not an exaggeration, it is even hard to believe. One person can only eat one devil fruit, and one person can only have one ability. This is an iron rule. Blackbeard has the ability to break iron laws. If someone else said this, Sengoku would definitely not believe it. But the person in front of me is Levi. Even monsters like Levi, who have thousands of abilities, exist, and one person has two abilities. It doesn't seem so difficult to accept. As soon as these words came out, the battlefield roared like boiling water. Can one person have two abilities brought by devil fruit at the same time? Sakazuki bit his cigar, looking confused. This sentence comes from Levi. Maybe it is really possible. Poor Salino put away his lazy expression and stared intently at the figure of the traditional Chinese medicine doctor standing on the battlefield. This man is a true emperor standing above the sea. The energy contained in his words has absolute weight, enough to detonate the entire sea. The moment Blackbeard heard these words from Levi, almost all the hairs on his body stood on his head. His biggest secret was exposed by Levi like this. How did you know? Blackbeard stared at Levi, his expression extremely ugly, and he almost squeezed out these words through his teeth. And he next second. Something came to mind. Suddenly. Blackbeard looked back at the few subordinates following him. Their ability to devour Whitebeard, they know it. Could it be that someone has quietly betrayed me? Your companion told me. With a chuckle on Levi's face, he said these words unhurriedly. Blackbeard's expression changed again. Advertisement. Really? Someone really betrayed you. Who is it? Catherine Butterfly. Or someone else? Or have they all betrayed themselves? Just Levi's words made Blackbeard angry like never before and broke through his inner defenses. He is a traitor, and at this point, Blackbeard is even less likely to trust anyone. Even Fan Oka and others who have followed him from the beginning. Blackbeard is suspicious of everyone. However, just the next second. Blackbeard no longer had time to think. Quote. Chang. The blade trembled softly. Levi, the demon's sword in his hand has been unsheathed. The bright red blade was stained red by the sunlight. Seeing Levi draw the sword, everyone's expressions, including Marines, changed suddenly, and even their bodies tensed up subconsciously. Levi's great reputation on the sea was built with the blood of strong men from all walks of life. Stroking the cold and smooth blade of the demon's sword in his hand, Levi didn't look like he was at the heart of the war in Uzumaki. The calm and indifferent face seemed to be thinking about something, and he slowly looked at Whitebeard's body as if he didn't care about anything. Levi didn't move, and everyone present didn't dare to move. Blackbeard, who had been knocked away by Levi before, Gujao, held on to the wound on his abdomen and persisted, looking at Levi with fear and embarrassment in his eyes. Crossing this mere 10 meters distance was only a matter of seconds for any strong person present. Even though he was knocked away, he was still the closest to Whitebeard and Levi among everyone present. He was never willing to give up on his plan to capture the Whitebeard shock fruit. He has been planning so far and has finally waited for such a good opportunity. How could he miss the fruits of victory in vain? But Blackbeard didn't dare to take action. Dust. Even if his plan to capture the Whitebeard shock fruit has reached its final stage. Even though Levi has made it clear that he wants to prevent himself from getting the shock fruit. Even looking at Levi approaching Whitebeard's body with a long knife in his hand with unknown intentions. But he still didn't dare to cross this short distance of 10 meters. This is the deterrent power of Levi. Chapter 162 Whitebeard is resurrected. Please subscribe. Sakazuki and Porcellino standing on the edge of the battlefield may have different ideas, but this does not affect everyone's determination to wait and see what happens. What exactly does he want to do? Under everyone's gaze, Levi slowly raised the demon knife in his hand and pointed it at Whitebeard's standing body. A string of sharp energy flows from the blade of the demon knife, and the cold light is so dazzling in the eyes of many people who are watching. Could it be that Levi plans to destroy Whitebeard's body to prevent me from getting the shock fruit? Blackbeard's face suddenly turned dark as he thought of this possibility. There is no doubt that if Levi really does this, his plan will definitely come to nothing. Under everyone's gaze, traces of fine white velvet light emerged from the blade of Levi's demon sword like snowflakes. Beasta and the others were extremely confused, but Margao, who was in front of everyone, suddenly had his eyes lit up. As Margao, who has the title of Phoenix, he can naturally detect the unique energy fluctuations of life force from the velvet light. He remembered that Levi once had the ability to resurrect the dead. Does Levi plan to? Thinking of this, Margao's eyes burst into ecstasy. Marshal Sengoku and he who were sitting on the high platform also had sudden changes in their expressions. They took a step forward as if they were shocked by some shocking idea, and stared at the demon sword 330 raised high by Levi. At the same time, they remembered the major event that once shocked the whole world. Is Levi planning to recreate that legendary past now? Buzz. It's not like the sound of Yongxi's overwhelming sound spreading all over the world from the demon sword. Levi raised his demon sword high and scanned the crowd, his expression indescribably plain and mysterious. Curious about my blood? Today I will tell you, yes, my blood can resurrect people. Such calm words were like an atomic bomb detonating in Marineford, sending huge waves in people's hearts. As Levi thought, the resurrection effect derived from the natural tooth is instantly attached to the demon sword through the Seshomaru template. Resurrection, Whitebeard. The dazzling divine light shot out from Levi's hand, making him look like a character from a myth. As Levi slashed the demon sword down, Whitebeard's body was instantly penetrated by the demon sword like a phantom. Advertisement. The glow that erupted from the blade not only completely enveloped Whitebeard, but also Ace not far away. This moment, everyone stared at Whitebeard's body standing in the center of the battlefield as if they had seen a ghost. The moment after being slashed by Levi's demon sword, Whitebeard's burly and abnormal body suddenly trembled, and a vague sense of oppression fell on everyone's heart. The most shocking thing is that the huge wound that penetrated Whitebeard started to squirm spontaneously. In the hazy light, you can vaguely see. Whitebeard's fingers seemed to move. Hey, this isn't true, is it? Porcellino's eyelids twitched and his mouth was half open. He stared at the burly figure in the halo that should have fallen and moved slowly. Sakazuki's eyes on the side also widened, and the cigar he was biting fell directly from his mouth, and his suit bounced away, creating a shower of sparks. Levi raised the demon sword in his hand high, and his seductive declaration reached the heavens and the earth at this moment, penetrating into the ears of everyone present. I tell you today that my blood cannot save people, but my hands can resurrect the dead. Want it? Then come on. All the secrets are with me. Come on, beat me. You can have it all. The passion and fighting spirit contained in his words turned into the purest power, inspiring every ambitious person. The temptation brought by resurrection is 100 times more powerful than the devil's whisper. Even in the Marine camp, there are quite a few careerists who are breathing heavily and heartbeats are thundering. The crowd roared, and the shouters raised their hands toward Levi, as if they could hold the future that leads to the door to wealth from the void. Levi looked down at the crowd around him, carried away by madness and desire. The demon sword held tightly in his hand trembled suddenly. The glow from the natural tooth disappeared completely with a crisp sound, and Whitebeard, whose wound was completely healed, was exposed in front of everyone. Some people are born to be conquerors of the sea, and they are also pirate leaders who symbolize freedom. And Whitebeard is the most typical one among them. Without any words, just opening your eyes in the spotlight is enough to trigger a tsunami-like shock. As the last trace of the demon sword's brilliance disappeared, Whitebeard's lowered eyes suddenly raised, and the domineering and fierceness of the king shot out from his eyes. Advertisement. After a brief silence, the pirates are excited, Marine is excited, and the reporters are also excited. The miracle of Whitebeard's resurrection not only affected the people around Marineford, but also spread to every corner of the world through the broadcast of the news by the reporters present. The rumors are true, Levi actually has the ability to resurrect the dead. Sengoku's pupils shrank suddenly, and the iron guardrail he was holding was crushed into scrap metal with a heart-wrenching tearing sound. How could such a thing happen? Garp's expression changed, and he watched Whitebeard and Ace being resurrected one after another as their bodies were penetrated. Complex emotions that were difficult to distinguish between joy and sorrow surged into his heart, leaving him unable to speak a complete sentence. 084003417 Philu 181,160,410. He pursed his lips tightly, lowered his head and said nothing. They were shocked by the historic moment when Levi resurrected the dead, but they were also panicked and disturbed by the resurrection of Whitebeard and Ace. The world balance that the world government has worked so hard to achieve has become meaningless because the absoluteness of death has been shaken. Whitebeard, who had just completed his resurrection, had a dazed look on his face. The chaos he felt after his death was finally awakened by the cheers of the surrounding crowd that erupted like a tsunami. Not dead yet. The fist slowly expanded, and the sea breeze flowing between the fingers of the palm was so familiar and real. This was by no means a place of hell for the dead. Whitebeard's eyes were filled with doubts and disbelief, and his gaze passed over the faces of the sons who were all too familiar to him. Daddy Whitebeard. Marco gritted his teeth and tried not to cry, but unfortunately his trembling voice revealed his inner excitement and ecstasy. Dad. Daddy. The other captains of the Whitebeard pirates rushed into the battlefield with red eyes and protected Whitebeard himself in 3 layers. Levi really took action, and he used incredible abilities to pull the dead Whitebeard back from the underworld. As the cheers grew louder, Luffy slowly woke up from his coma. I opened my eyes and looked around, and immediately found Ace who had come back from the dead. Ace is not dead yet. Luffy jumped out of Jinbei's arms like he was electrocuted, rolled and crawled into the crowd and threw Ace to the ground. Chapter 163 I will change the gears of history today and kill Marineford with a knife. Please subscribe. What the hell? Whitebeard actually came back to life. Damn it. It took a lot of effort to get to this point, but actually. Blackbeard's eyes were red and he clenched his teeth tightly. He was afraid that he would be frightened by the miracle of resurrection in front of him and lose control of his strength, thus attracting the attention of Whitebeard, Levi and others. He was already unlucky enough, but now he didn't dare to add to this breathtaking situation. He saw Whitebeard and Ace standing in front of him alive. A chill shot from his heels to the sky, and Blackbeard's face turned pale. The only thing he could think about now was to run away from Marineford. Amidst the cheers and noises of the crowd, Whitebeard suddenly looked at Levi not far away. Did you help us in all of this? After Whitebeard opened his mouth, everyone closed their mouths and looked at Levi. Under the admiring and grateful gazes of everyone, Levi smiled slightly and raised his feet and walked forward. Hey, Whitebeard, long time no see. Seeing Levi walking towards Whitebeard, the group of people stepped back to make way for Levi. How does it feel to be alive? Under Levi's calm gaze, Whitebeard was still shocked and unbelievable by the miracle of resurrection. Not bad. Very good. While laughing wildly, Whitebeard suddenly opened his arms to his sons, and the joy he vented turned into the purest volume and swept across. The nearby white band pirates were shaken by the noise and their ears were ringing, but at this moment everyone's emotions were aroused. Cheers and shouts madly vented the surprise and pressure of these pirates. The strongest man in the old and new worlds. Sengoku stared at Whitebeard who had regained his life on the battlefield, and Levi not far away from the high platform. Advertisement. The thoughts that kept swirling in his mind made him extremely irritable. The battle situation had changed so drastically that he didn't even know how to start now. It's so old. It feels so good to be alive. Whitebeard laughed and looked at his sons who were crying with joy, as if this sentence was originally spoken to them. From the joy that overflowed on Whitebeard's face, we could tell that he really couldn't let go of these children. Ace, you are also resurrected. Whitebeard turned his head and immediately spotted Ace holding Luffy and comforting him. The surprise of finding important family members raised the warm atmosphere to the extreme again. But before Whitebeard could lead his men towards Ace, a large number of Marines had already surrounded him and cut off the contact between the two groups of people. Seeing Ace who was entrusted by his friend to be resurrected, Garp didn't know whether the complicated emotions in his heart at the moment could be summed up with happiness. Under the gaze of many Marines, Ace held Luffy tightly in his arms, his eyes filled with fighting spirit appearing again. As for Luffy, this kid is still immersed in the surprise of Ace coming back from the dead, and he doesn't realize that the war has never ended. Faced with the vigilant and awed gazes of thousands of elite Marines, Levi showed a calm smile. I am here today to change history and turn the gears of history. Hearing Levi say these words, most of the people present were even more afraid and apprehensive. Such an inexplicable response gave people an unusually mysterious illusion. Levi turned to look at Whitebeard, who was surrounded by many pirates, and Ace, who was not far away blocking Luffy behind him. My mind has changed. Someone told me that it would be interesting to change the script. I think it is right. Seeing that Levi didn't seem to care at all that this place was Marines' headquarters, Marineford, Sengoku snorted and stared at Levi, trying to save Marine's face in his subsequent actions. It was during this short period of time that Levi suddenly raised the demon sword in his hand, and the blade shining with a cold light pointed straight at the sky of Marineford. Don't you want my blood? If you want my blood, come here. The sharp sword energy shoots straight into the sky from the blade. The countless pirates and Marines around them all felt their knees weak at this moment, and were almost knocked to the ground by the sudden and terrifying sword. Advertisement. Boom. The mighty sword force stirred up the wind and clouds, but in just a short moment, the sky above Marineford suddenly changed dramatically with the explosion of the sword force. A looming shadow of a giant sword hung high in the storm above Marineford, and the flashes of thunder continued to illuminate the dim thunderclouds. What exactly does Levi want to do? Sengoku was shocked. He had never heard of such a magnificent kendo technique even after he had been in charge of Marine for so many years. The crane next to Sengoku was also dumbfounded, and a strong sense of uneasiness and crisis filled every Marine's heart. In the face of the natural power of Levi's sword to change the sky, what do the world government and the marine government mean? Zero. Whitebeard and others were closest to Levi, and the sword pressure coming from the sky seemed to be admonishing their own targets, but it did not put too much pressure on these pirates. The marine cadres and elites on the outer level were in dire straits, and there was no way to escape the oppressive feeling falling from the sky. The sword pressure from the demonic sword squeezed every marine until their heads dropped, and they had to do their best to stay standing. Other than that, they had no power to resist. Isn't there an upper limit to Levi's strength? Why does it feel like every time we meet, his combat power doubles? Margao and others raised their heads high, and the sword power hidden in the thunder clouds contained a heart-stopping power. Even if its terrifying power has not yet fully exploded, the surging energy waves have completely shattered the calmness of the sea around Marineford. Even the damp and salty sea breeze in the air solidified strangely at this moment. This power has surpassed Dad. Is this really a level that humans can achieve? Surrounded by many Marines, Ace was deeply shocked by Levi's explosive power. Levi showed his strength and power so unscrupulously, but at the same time, he severely stung Marineford's real master. Click. Sengoku's face was solemn, and the metal guardrail he held in his hand finally turned into a pile of debris. Chapter 164. Cut the old world in two. Please subscribe. Whether it's Marine or the old world, let's cut them off. The sword energy, like a diamond's brilliance, flashed violently from the demon's sword, and the long sword held high above Levi's head was swung down with his arm. No. Sengoku on the high platform roared at the top of his lungs and rushed towards Levi. His speed was so fast that the high platform under his feet exploded. He had previously thought that Levi's concentration of sword power was just to humiliate the marine government's prestige. Leading a group of pirates to preach the treacherous and chaotic propaganda in this marine holy land. But now Sengoku couldn't help but start to panic, especially when the terrifying sword that tore through the sky in an instant was falling to the ground at an unimaginable speed. Stop him quickly. Sakazuki and Porosalino, who had been waiting on the edge of the battlefield and were afraid to take action, had to take action. If Levi is allowed to cut down the sword that created the world, 100, the marine soldiers living on Marineford will surely cause extremely terrible casualties in an instant. The fastest one was Porosalino, who turned into a golden stream of light and hit a few meters in front of Levi almost instantly. But as he got closer to Levi, the surging sword force turned into greater resistance, actually stopping the semi-elemental Porosalino in midair. The flickering golden light could not last long under the raging sword energy. Only when Porosalino revealed his true form, he raised his head and met Levi's indifferent and dark eyes. The coldness in his eyes locked him instantly. In panic, Porosalino only had time to summon up all his energy and try his best to escape from the almost solid air. The next moment, the sky melted into one under the sparkling light of diamonds. Nearly 100,000 people closed their eyes at this moment. Even Sengoku, who rushed towards Levi crazily, could only lower his head in humiliation under the deadly radiation. From the moment of silence to the overwhelming impact, it only took half a second. The entire Marineford was like a cake that had been knocked over to the ground, being torn and squeezed by the force of the sword that crashed to the ground. From east to west, the golden stretch of land spanning dozens of kilometers neatly divides Marineford into two halves. The dazzling sword power reaches straight into the sky. Advertisement. Even the islanders living in the Sabaody archipelago shuddered and raised their heads amidst the thunderous roar. The uneasiness and fear rising from their hearts made them stop facing Marineford for a long time without moving. Such a terrifying scene shocked the vast sea area tens of thousands of miles around. The flash of sword energy on the horizon can be seen from almost any corner of the world. A shocking sword penetrated the Marineford formation, and the terrifying power contained in it quickly swept away along with the continental shelf. The wildly disturbed sea currents rolled up giant waves hundreds of meters high, completely tearing apart the calmness of the sea. There was no place to stay in such a huge battlefield, and the weaker marine was almost blown away the moment the light of the sword struck. Only marine officers above vice admiral can withstand this impact with their bodies. If you want to avoid being injured by the sword at all, you need at least a marine admiral or above experience. Until the light of the sky-bearing sword chi dissipated, the huge crack that completely split Marineford was revealed. Sakazuki and the others looked horrified, looking at Levi again with no fighting will in their eyes. Levi is using his own strength on the battlefield of Marineford to completely declare his existence to the world. Even though he had experienced a big event like the Summit War before, he could only be reduced to a foil under the sword of Levi's terrifying strength. Levi is the real protagonist of this battlefield. Many of the pirates guarding Whitebeard raised their heads and saw a huge crack leading to the end of their field of vision. The bottomless abyss is enough to make any audience fearful. If they were not determined, their knees would become weak and they would fall to the ground on the spot. Sabaody Archipelago. After the violent earthquake gradually subsided, the islanders slowly got up from the ground, raised their eyes and looked into the distance, and immediately screamed in horror. Look, Marineford is separated. What? How is this possible? Is it because of the earthquake? Hurry and find the security forces. The boats were swept away by the tsunami and there was no way to go out to sea. At the end of the Islanders' field of vision, Marineford revealed a pale white crack. The sunlight on the other side first passes through the entire island along the crack that was split by Marineford, and then shines into the eyes of the Islanders of the Sabaody Archipelago. It is precisely because of this spectacle that the Islanders discovered Marineford's anomalies from such a long distance. Advertisement. Not only the residents of Sabaody Archipelago were shocked, but the entire New World learned about what happened at Marine headquarters because of the notes on Marineford. The world is in an uproar. It wasn't until Levi slowly retracted the demonic sword that he held high that the high-temperature steam that filled his surroundings dissipated in an instant. Marine, who was surrounded by Whitebeard and others from afar, was dead and wounded at this moment. Even if he survived, he was still immersed in the terror of Levi's sword, which could not pose any threat to the Whitebeard pirates and others. Ace seized this opportunity and grabbed Luffy by the collar directly through the encirclement and came to Whitebeard. Boom. With a muffled sound, everyone present looked towards the ruins not far away. It's actually that it can have such a terrible effect. As Sengoku's dull voice spread, the ruins shattered in the roaring explosion, revealing Sengoku's upper body covered with small scars under the flying sand. As early as the moment Levi's demon sword fell, Sengoku had already resigned himself to his fate and completely gave up on preventing Levi from destroying Marineford. Instead, he turned around and tried his best to save the Marine generals who were within the killing range of the demon sword. It's a pity that the destructive power contained in Levi's sword is beyond everyone's psychological endurance. Many vice admirals tried their best to defend themselves against the brilliance of the sword without causing even a drop of water, and were blown away by the strong wind caused by the sword. Except for the vice admirals who were saved by Sengoku himself, everyone else was stained. Sengoku stared at Levi with a gloomy expression. In the end, he gave priority to directing his personnel to control the spread of the disaster in Marineford, and personally rushed towards the high platform where he was before. What Marine lacks most nowadays is a master who can win the battle. He doesn't want anything to happen to Garp and others. He had to confirm it himself. Looking at Sengoku's quickly leaving back, Whitebeard turned to Levi and asked, "Levi, why did you do all this?" As his strength gradually recovered, the ground shook as soon as Whitebeard opened his mouth. Levi stood quietly on the trembling earth, looked at Whitebeard and smiled. "Didn't I already say it?" Then he glanced at the remaining Marine generals. Everyone in Marine who could open their eyes hurriedly lowered their heads when Levi glanced away. Even the military vice admiral would not dare to make eye contact with Levi casually. Chapter 165 Let Celestial Dragons Become Captive Dogs. Death of Blackbeard. Please subscribe. Margao saw that Marine, who had always been arrogant, actually dared not let go just because of Levi's look, and the pores all over his body suddenly opened with pleasure. It wasn't until Levi looked at the high platform that was reduced to ashes under the bombardment of the sword that he saw a person who dared to look directly into Levi's eyes. Garp. Justice. Marine's justice has been tainted. If the celestial dragons are allowed to do all kinds of evil, Marine will also be a stain under this world government. Levi turned his head and looked around. There was only calmness in his dark eyes, as if there were no human emotions. 5 old guys, look at this. Last warning. Take care of the celestial dragons. Whoever dares to leave Mariajoy again, those 4 dead celestial dragons will be their role models. There was no arrogance in his voice, only indifference, but it contained huge power, making everyone present breathless. Levi plans to fight the world government to the end. Is destroying Marineford just the first step for Levi? The next goal is the pinnacle of power Mariajoy who stands at the top of the world. Leaving aside what Marine was thinking, the way the Whitebeard pirates and others looked at Levi immediately changed. 17 Levi, I'm afraid you are the only one in the world who dares to say that. Whitebeard laughed boldly, causing the surrounding ruins to tremble. Margao, Ace and others watched Levi's expression change several times. There are shocks, astonishments, but also admiration. This is the truly free pirate. If you don't like anyone, just FK him directly. Even the world government 5 elders don't dare to give a shit when faced with Levi's threat. Enjoying the admiration of the pirates, Levi remembered what the queen had said to him. It was that conversation that led him to find the true meaning of life. He just wants to discuss the world government and all the institutions and organizations that are working for the privileges of celestial dragons. Kill. That's so boring. He wants to make all exploiters feel powerless and desperate, and to make the group of celestial dragons lackeys who are running for profit betray their relatives. He wants the world government to personally feel the death threat and fear brought by the world's peak force. He wants to return this sea to the color of justice and freedom. Whitebeard understands. Advertisement. Margao and Ace also understood. Times are bound to change. The next era. It's Levi's time. Faced with the roar of the pirates and his group soaring into the sky, Garp gasped and slumped down on the stone slab nearby. The entire Marineford building collapsed, and everyone could only do their best to take care of their exhausted bodies on the ruins. Looking at the raindrops falling from the sky, the wrinkles on Garp's face seemed to have aged more than 10 years. When Levi declared a death threat to the world government, all the strength in his body was instantly drained, and he almost fainted from his vision. Even if Marine suffered defeat under Levi, it was not just once or twice, but this time it was a huge blow to the stability of the world government's rule of the entire world. Such humiliation and crisis cannot be simply brushed aside as if nothing happened. If the world government does not make every effort to save the face lost by Marine in this war, the order of the entire sea will be in jeopardy. Levi admitted that he killed those celestial dragons. Is there any connection between Kong's betrayal of the world government and Levi? The maddening worries melted into the rain with Garp's long sigh. The other side. Whitebeard, there is someone you will never forget. Levi turned to Whitebeard and chuckled. Certainly. Under the spotlight of everyone, Whitebeard looked towards Blackbeard, who was outside the crowd with a murderous look on his face and planned to take advantage of the chaos to escape. Margao and others also cast their vicious glances at Blackbeard as if they were waking up from a dream. If this traitor hadn't attacked them secretly, how could Father Whitebeard and Ace have died tragically on the spot? If Levi, the savior, hadn't arrived in time to turn the tide, what a terrible future would have been waiting for Dad and Brother Ace. Oops. Blackbeard's face turned pale, and he knew something was wrong when he noticed the looks from everyone in by. At this moment, he turned around and ran without caring about his dignity. He wanted to leave the crew members he brought without even saying hello. Don't let him escape. Kill him. Kill him. Advertisement. The crowd in the white group was so excited that even Levi gave up his thoughts of leaving and watched with interest how a scum like Blackbeard died in the hands of Whitebeard. It is said that every injustice has its owner, and every debt has its owner, but now it seems that the situation is not bad. Levi stood aside and watched, while Whitebeard ignored his newly recovered body and directly attacked Blackbeard, who was dozens of meters away. Die. The majestic momentum of the ocean overlord surged out, instantly pressing down the battlefield where Blackbeard was standing by dozens of centimeters. Boom. The sudden pressure caused Blackbeard's escape movements to stall. When he broke free, his way was blocked by various members of the white group. Blackbeard looked extremely ugly and looked back. However, he found that his subordinates were stunned in place, facing the pirates surrounded by white groups, and surrendered without even a trace of resistance. Margao and others will not be lenient towards these accomplices. And Blackbeard himself couldn't guarantee it, and he didn't have the time to pay attention to how the people in the white group dealt with the prisoners. As for Marine, they are still having a headache with damage control and have no time to pay attention to Blackbeard's nonsense. Due to Levi's power, all the ordinary Marines disappeared like mice. With no hope left, Blackbeard finally gave up all illusions and actually took the initiative to attack Whitebeard. If I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time. Blackbeard roared, dark fruit fully activated. Overwhelming darkness covers half of Marineford. Its pair of fists, entwined with the flow of darkness, kill Whitebeard. Teach, has your arrogance still not changed? Facing the rapidly coming fist, a bright light flashed in Whitebeard's eyes, and he punched away without any fancy. Boom. The shock wave exploded loudly, and under the gaze of everyone, Blackbeard was hit directly to the ground as if he had been hit by a heavy truck. D-dit. A mouthful of hot blood spurted out from Blackbeard's mouth. If it weren't for the injury he received from Levi before, how could he be in such a mess? It's a pity that Whitebeard didn't give him time to regret. As the violent impact shot up from the pit, Blackbeard's breath completely disappeared in the air of Marineford. When Whitebeard walked out of the impact crater step by step, everyone's eyes turned to the head he was holding in his hand. That's Blackbeard's head. There was a vague fear of death and regret on his face, especially those eyes that were staring blankly at Levi in the crowd. Chapter 166 The Next Era, the Era of Levi. Please subscribe. Mama. Blood dripped from the severed part of Blackbeard's head. His eyes were still wide with too much emotion remaining. Reluctance, resentment, regret, confusion, regret. But no matter what, this ambitious tycoon finally died here. Death at the hands of Whitebeard. He also died in the hands of Levi. It can even be said that Blackbeard's death was caused by Levi. Levi glanced at Blackbeard's head, and his eyes turned and landed on Whitebeard. It's over. Levi said softly. Yeah, Whitebeard nodded. He knew what Levi was talking about. End this war. Whitebeard threw Blackbeard's head on the ground, and his eyes crossed Blackbeard's head and fell on the white group. His children are already scarred. Despite this war, he survived and Ace survived. But, little Oz, and so many children, died in Marineford forever. Sengoku, this war is over. Whitebeard turned back suddenly. He looked at Sengoku in the distance. His voice was so shocking that the air was shaking. Sengoku didn't speak, but there was uncontrollable fatigue in his eyes. Yes, it's over. The performance of White Team and Levi in Summit War severely damaged Marine's morale. If this war continues, Marine will not be able to execute Ace. Marine. Lost. Sengoku stared straight at Levi. All this is because of this man. Use your own power to reverse the war between Marine and Sea Emperor. How powerful and arrogant is this? Sengoku looked deeply at Levi's face, as if he wanted to remember him in his heart forever. Levi met his gaze. The two looked at each other for a moment. No one spoke. Everything has become a foregone conclusion. Advertisement. At this moment, a new era will come. Levi retracted his gaze and looked at Whitebeard. He chuckled and said, I'll wait for you in your hometown. Say it. A breeze blew. This man who towered over everyone and had the entire room in Summit War, suddenly disappeared. Whitebeard stared at the spot where Levi disappeared. After a while, He laughed heartily. Children, this battle is over, let's go home. Deafening laughter, like thunder, echoed in the sky above Marineford. Rumble. Moby DK sets sail. Right on the inner bay of Marineford. This moment, countless Marines stared at Moby DK as it sailed through the inner bay of the Marine, but no one stopped it. Let the fleet full of pirates disappear below the sea level. Watch Marineford regain his composure again. Sengoku seemed to be relieved of the heavy burden he had carried for most of his life, and slowly spoke to the countless Marines below. This war is over. He didn't say the winner. But everyone knows. Marine, lose. The entire naval headquarters Marineford was shrouded in the dismal haze of defeat. All Marines, including several admirals, felt unspeakable in their hearts. Halfway through the summit war, they were about to gain a huge victory, but were suddenly stopped by Levi. It's unspeakably frustrating. In ruins, Garp and Crane both had heavy expressions on their faces. The thing they least wanted to see happened. Levi's character has changed, and he may have a desire to conquer the world. 084003417 Philu 181,170,310. Chaos is coming. Garp sighed deeply in his heart and slowly opened his eyes to look at Sengoku. I saw Sengoku standing in the ruins like a statue. The raindrops continued to gather and turned into water flowing down from the wrinkles on his face. His tired eyes were lowered and he didn't know what he was thinking about. The pressure he is carrying is probably more terrifying than himself, and he must be very uncomfortable now. Sengoku, have you ever thought about taking a break? Advertisement. Garp spoke, and he looked into the distance, which was the direction of the Holy Land Mariajoy. His expression was complicated, and he didn't know whether he was asking Sengoku or himself. He thought about Ace's resurrection from the dead, and the fatigue emerged in his heart. If Ace dies like this, Garp will grit his teeth and continue. But now Ace is still alive, and Luffy is also alive. If you continue to work at Marineford, you will inevitably have to face the painful choice of Marine or Ace one day. He was a little tired and wanted to rest like this. It would be nice to do this like Crane. There will be such thoughts. Even if it's just wavering, it's not decided yet. After all, he is old. Sengoku didn't speak, and he was tired. This war was fought with heavy losses. If Garp, a great hero of the Marine Corps, were to retire at this time, it would be a wound to Marine's momentum. So, what about yourself? The 5 elders may be angry and even demote themselves. Sengoku's eyes were deep and he stared at the place where Levi left. What the future will bring, he doesn't know. But there is no doubt that with this war, the world will change. At the same time, no one noticed the distant sea. The pirate ship symbolizing the red hair pirates slowly slowed down and finally floated completely on the sea several miles away from Marineford. Shanks stared at the split Marineford in a daze in the distance until Beckman also came to his side. It seems that we don't need to appear anymore, Shanks said jokingly. Beckman, who stayed beside him, was slightly stunned. He wanted to laugh but couldn't. That sword is really terrifying. It can even cut a large island like Marineford in two. More than that, if you pay close attention, you will find that Wei didn't show any signs of exhaustion after making that sword strike. The fluctuation of the breath is no different from before the Qian Jiao knife was drawn, that is to say. That sword is far from reaching the limit of Levi's combat power. The relaxed smile on Shank's face disappeared, and his eyes looking into the distance were full of solemnity. That sword cut through more than just naval headquarters Marineford. A person who dares to threaten the celestial dragons and intimidate the world government's peak force will probably have an even more terrifying shock to the world. No matter where Levi can go in the future, history will always remember today's tiger. Remember the sword that split the old world apart. This era is about to undergo tremendous changes. Even if Whitebeard did not die in the Summit War, this era no longer belongs to Whitebeard. This is Levi's time. Shanks didn't say it clearly, but the members of the entire pirate ship couldn't say a word to refute when faced with Marine's tragic defeat. Chapter 167 The Evil Ghost emerges from the cage. Please subscribe. Impel Down direction. The situation in the direction of Marineford also led to the continued escalation of riots in Impel Down. The many Marines that cannot effectively contain criminals cannot stop the evil surging from the depths of Impel Down. Impel Down at the city gate, many Marines looked in the direction of Marineford and were so frightened that their jaws were dislocated. The battle in the direction of Marineford did not affect Impel Down, but as the riots in Impel Down continued to escalate, they could not wait for support from Marine headquarters. When many Marine guards were panicking, violent vibrations came from beneath their feet. Boom. The dull roar became louder and louder, and the entire ground started to squirm like the sea surface. How is this going? Damn it, have the underground riots spread to the ground? Before these jailers could take action, the crawling ground suddenly exploded. Hundreds of pieces of rubble were shot into the sky like cannonballs. Almost none of the Marine guards guarding the ground were spared, and they fell to the ground completely in this sudden grand explosion. Ha 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 ha, you losers also want to lock me up. After the dust and smoke gradually dissipated, a muscular figure strode out. Invisible air waves surrounded the figure, and the aura swept across the sea in an instant. Is it that guy? A jailer who survived by chance raised his head amidst the sounds of fear, but was 140 stepped down by the muscular figure. Yeah, that's your grandpa Bullet. While laughing wildly, the jailer who was stepped on by Bartlett turned into a ball of blood mist and exploded. It was at this moment that Doug's incompatible aura suddenly rose into the sky from behind him. The sense of crisis that arose in his gut made Bullet look back, and he saw a tall and muscular figure walking slowly, creating a large shadow on Impel Down. Hey, Redfield, you're out too. Under Bullet's increasingly excited gaze, the figure hidden in the darkness slowly emerged. The brainless and reckless man has left prison but still shows no progress. These words were not addressed to anyone, but Bullet's aura that enveloped the entire Impel Down was torn to pieces in an instant. Under the shadow of the high wall, even Bullet could not see clearly the shadow in the darkness. But those 2 points of scarlet eyes that became more and more eye-catching in the darkness and the evil smile that emerged from the corner of the mouth were chilling. Advertisement. Feeling that he was being provoked, Bullet refused to give up and stepped forward suddenly, stepping on the ground. Boom. The sudden burst of force whipped up strong winds, which not only swept away the wildly surging waves near Impel Down. It also exposed Redfield, who was shrouded in smoke and ashes. Bullet's pupils contracted, and crazy fighting spirit began to sweep through every cell. Different from Bullet, even though Redfield was imprisoned at the bottom of Impel Down eternal hell for such a long time. But the image shown to everyone is still elegant and powerful. Facing Bullet's imminent pressure, Redfield flicked his wrist, and the slender bat-handled umbrella instantly thrust out. Dab. The invisible and immaterial momentum collided violently between the two. As the bricks and stones laid on the ground exploded inch by inch, the violent explosion directly created an impact crater with a radius of 100 meters on the ground. As Redfield and Bullet successfully escaped from Impel Down, more and more big pirates and criminals broke the calm of the sea. The conflict between the two became more and more intense, and many criminals who had just escaped from Impel Down were oppressed by this momentum and had to hide inside the wall again and did not dare to show their faces. Until a roar from weak to strong roared from the sky above Marineford, bringing a brief silence to the entire Impel Down that was filled with chaos. That's Levi. The breath of terror is suppressed from the sky. Vast and endless. Whether it's the powerful Bullet, or the elegant but dangerously powerful Redfield. Under Levi's extremely oppressive breath, his body tensed up and he clenched his fists almost subconsciously. Criminals with average strength are like chickens that have been stripped of their feathers under this pressure, hiding in the corner and shivering without even daring to raise their heads. The unstoppable sense of oppression quickly silenced these heinous criminals. It wasn't until Levi was gone and the overwhelming and majestic aura disappeared in an instant that many criminals dared to let go of their breathing restrictions. Is that Levi? You can't suppress my momentum so easily. It's amazing. Facing such a terrifying aura, only a war madman like Bullet would feel excited. I saw him trembling all over under the high pressure of Levi's momentum, trying his best to control the desire to declare war emitted by every cell in his body. The trembling posture is not because of fear, but because of the passion that can't help but arise when you feel a strong person. Bullet's greatest wish in life is to crush powerful enemies. But this doesn't mean that he is a reckless fool and takes action against Levi now. Advertisement. That's called seeking death. Now is not the time yet. It wasn't until Levi left that the boiling blood in his body gradually calmed down. Bullet turned around and looked at Redfield beside him, his eyes flashing with a light that was not too serious. Old man, can you still feel at ease when such people still exist in this era? Join forces with me. Even if your and my combined strength can't compare to that monster Levi, it's still better than fighting alone, right? Redfield said nothing, completely ignoring Bullet's attempt to counter the fire. As soon as Bullet opened his mouth, many criminals who escaped from Impel Down rolled their eyes and wanted to grab Redfield's thigh. Yes, no matter what you plan to do, you always need someone to fight for you. Although we are not as good as those big pirates, we are still willing to follow your footsteps. In response to the adulation of these criminals, Redfield remained silent. He didn't even want to waste time by staying in Impel Down, so he turned around and disappeared at the end of the darkness. Later, Redfield's words drifted along with the sea breeze. This era is indeed Levi's home court. But that doesn't mean someone can rule the ocean forever. Roger can't do that. Levi, it's also impossible. Join forces. He does not need it. As a legendary pirate of the past era, Redfield was on par with Whitebeard and Roger on his own. He marveled at the miracle of Levi cutting off Marineford with one sword, but this did not mean that he would give up all ambitions and surrender to Levi. Redfield didn't think he would lose. But now to accumulate strength, he needs to find the devil fruit. Until Redfield disappeared in Impel Down, Bullet grinned. He glanced at the position of Marineford and Mariajoy, and finally disappeared as well. The big pirates and criminals who escaped from Impel Down saw that the two bosses were too lazy to pay attention to them. They cursed in their hearts and hurriedly formed a team and left. After Waldo rushed out of Impel Down, all he could think about was seeking revenge on the guy who betrayed him. At the same time, Waldo was stunned after hearing the news that Blackbeard died tragically because he was betrayed. What happened to Blackbeard reminded him of what happened to him. Especially after seeing the tragic situation of Marineford being destroyed by Levi, I fell into deep thought. Chapter 168 Buster Call, teaming up with Aunt Kaido. Please subscribe. Holy Land in a magnificent hall in Mariajoy. The arrogant 5th Emperor. How dare you threaten the great celestial dragons? Are you treating us like pet dogs in captivity again? He must be put to death. No, I will make him a slave, and he will never be able to stand up again. How come he's not dead yet? Marines idiots haven't killed that D yet. The celestial dragons who had gathered here to watch the Marine government execute Ace were now furious. Countless precious treasures were thrown onto the big screen like garbage. They were furious and beat the furniture and servants around them wildly. Only a few of the longer celestial dragons were sitting on the sofa with pale faces, not knowing what they were thinking about, completely ignoring the screams from the servants. One wave comes after another. I believe you all heard Levi's death announcement to the celestial dragons in Marineford. Please think of a way to come out. The old man sitting on the right side of the crowd rubbed his eyebrows and leaned on the sofa very tiredly. Celestial dragon sitting next to him didn't even bother to raise his eyes. He took a deep breath from his cigar and spoke slowly. Thousands of years of rule by the celestial dragons have allowed the sea to have a stable order, and no one is allowed to destroy it. I think this matter should be left to the 5 elders to handle. Levi is not the first person to want to overthrow our rule. But you see, the people sitting in Mariajoy, this holy place, are not us. Where are those guys who tried to resist? Having said this, Celestial Dragons, who was sitting in the middle, let out a contemptuous laugh and stuffed the cigar he had just taken a breath into the hair of the servant next to him. The only remaining old man did not speak, but stared blankly at the smashed big screen. The screen paused exactly at the moment when Levi announced his intention to kill Marineford. Even across the big screen, whose picture quality was not outstanding, the old man was still shocked by Levi's strength. The people who plan to attack us this time feel different from those guys before. Levi, has a strong man of this strength ever appeared during the rule of the Celestial Dragons? It seems. No. Advertisement. Levi truly dares to kill Celestial Dragons and truly has the strength to kill Celestial Dragons. This moment, this old Celestial Dragons felt deep fear in his heart. At the same time, the 5 elders who were the heads of the world government happened to be discussing this matter in another conference hall. Emergency meeting. I guess you already know the content of this meeting. Let's get straight to the point. How to deal with it. The 5 elders took a sip of the hot tea in their hands and looked at the other 4 leaders behind the round table. The air in the entire conference hall seemed to have solidified. Such a thick and dull atmosphere showed that the 5 leaders were not at peace. 5 elders, who had a scar on his forehead, punched the thick and luxurious round table, and the entire hall seemed to tremble with the old man's rage. Levi cannot be allowed to continue. This has reached the bottom line. He is incompetent and obviously cannot be won over. Furthermore, it was Sengoku's serious dereliction of duty to allow Levi to act recklessly in Marineford. After this time, he can step down from the position of marshal. Levi wants to hurt his heart first and humiliate the majesty of world government in front of the whole world. What he is planning is even more terrifying and has shaken our foundation. The anger of the superior was quite terrifying, and the entire hall buzzed with the words of the 5 elders with scars on their foreheads. From the crimson birthmark on his forehead, it can be seen that he is really angry, and he is furious. Taoist robe 5 elders stared at the trembling green tea in the cup and sighed, put the teacup back on the table and looked at everyone. It's understandable to be angry, but the things that need to be discussed cannot be delayed. Allowing dangerous elements like Levi to operate at sea will be a serious problem. Under the gaze of the Taoist 5 elders, the remaining 3 leaders who did not speak nodded in agreement. What he has done has reached the bottom line. Launch the Buster Call. Erase the Golden City and Levi, together. Marine's power alone can no longer shake Levi. A cold light flashed in the eyes of the blonde 5 elders. What do you think? The beanie-hatted 5 elders raised an eyebrow. Contact Kaido and Charlotte Linlin. If you want to completely eliminate Levi, you need to use their power. Advertisement. The blonde 5 elders tapped her fingers lightly, and the low voice slowly came out. Then let's decide. Let Kaido and Charlotte Linlin let the newly appointed head of the CP agency go, and take this opportunity to see his abilities. So be it. Words came out from the conference room. The great wave of the times is about to set off, and the entire world is destined to be covered. At the same time, Levi, who took the first step, finally arrived at the Yuhu Sea area. After asking all the way, I found the island where Whitebeard's hometown is. Before anyone even landed, the entire island was filled with cheers from a large number of islanders. 0. Looking at the swarming islanders, Levi thought for a moment and finally remembered that his performance on Marineford might have been broadcast to these islanders. Although Whitebeard is a pirate, he takes great care of his hometown, so the local Miao people do not have any negative resistance to the Whitebeard pirates. On the contrary, when they saw Levi, Marineford directly saved Whitebeard and Ace like a magic weapon descending from heaven. At that moment, almost half of the Whitebeard Sea area was filled with the cheers of local people. People admire Edward as the protector of the Whitebeard Sea, and naturally they are also grateful to Levi for saving him. Feeling the warm and simple sincere gratitude of the islanders, Levi simply followed the islanders to a local cocktail party to start the celebration. It was not until dusk that the thousands of pirate ships of the Whitebeard pirates were discovered by the islanders when they got close enough to the island. After all, Whitebeard and others don't have Levi's ability to fly directly. Being able to rush back to Whitebeard waters from Marineford in the evening is already approaching the limit of a sailing ship. Hearing the cheers of the islanders running to tell each other, Levi also came to the coast from a bunch of drunkards who had fallen to the ground. Whitebeard also happened to be standing on the mast of the sailing ship, with a faint smile on his face. The moment he saw Levi, there was a glint in his eyes. The two saw each other at the same time and smiled at each other. Chapter 169 The two most powerful forces in the world form an alliance. Please subscribe. Let's go have a drink. After the white pirate ship landed, Whitebeard immediately stepped forward and took Levi to the tavern in the center of the island. Levi knew that Whitebeard had something to say to him, so he nodded to Ace, Margao and others who were disembarking from the boat, and then followed Whitebeard away from the coast. Along the way, a large number of islanders gathered on both sides of the road and cheered even louder to Whitebeard and Levi. Many children jumped behind Levi and Whitebeard, even though they didn't know what the adults were cheering for. However, in such an enthusiastic atmosphere, how could the innocent child be so dissatisfied with the adults' thoughts? It seems that you like living on this island very much. Levi showed a kind smile to the surrounding islanders while looking at Whitebeard who was leading the way. Whitebeard was stunned for a moment, then chuckled and said, 583, ancient la 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 la. This is indeed a good place to rest. If you are tired in the future, you are always welcome to come here and have a drink with me. Levi's eyes flashed slightly when he heard this. He didn't say anything more and just nodded. Whitebeard chuckled, looking into the distance as if he was recalling the years when he was young and working hard on the sea. Entering the tavern, the little girl behind the bar saw Whitebeard arriving and naturally came up to him. She was obviously a regular customer. Come on, the ale here is a rare wine, I will not get drunk today. As Whitebeard made a loud statement, the main cadres and captains of the White Regiment entered the bar and found a seat to sit down. All eyes were focused on Levi beside Whitebeard. This is also natural. If it weren't for Levi's strong intervention in the Summit War, I'm afraid half of the people present would not be able to come back. Even Whitebeard looked at Levi with enthusiasm. Levi was stunned for a moment, then showed a smile and raised the wine glass in his hand high. Cheers that we can still get together. Who? Levi was the perfect person to start this cocktail party. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire tavern was filled with enthusiastic cheers. To the true heroes. Advertisement. Whitebeard also struck while the iron was hot. He stood up holding the huge wine glass like a wine barrel and swept towards the people in the tavern with a heroic smile on his face. Drink, drink, drink. Margao and his party also let go completely, and then raised their wine glasses high on each other's shoulders. Looking at the white group members who were as close as a family in front of him, Levi turned his wrist and poured the ale in the cup directly into his mouth. All of a sudden, the strong aroma of wine swept across the entire tavern, and the mellow aroma with a hint of bitterness was truly unique. Staring at Levi who was drinking heavily in front of him, Whitebeard seemed to have returned to the time when he accompanied Roger to drink at Wanokuni. After being slightly dazed, Whitebeard smiled nonchalantly, clinked his wine glasses with Levi, and downed most of the barrel of wine. Phew, it's so enjoyable. Whitebeard pulled Levi to sit down, and the orange-red sunlight setting outside the window gave the two of them a layer of gold. In addition, when everyone in the white group saw that Whitebeard wanted to talk to Levi, they all avoided their position. As a result, this small area seems to be isolated from the world. Levi seemed to have read through Whitebeard's inner thoughts. He put the wine glass in his hand back on the table and glanced across the table with a sober and calm gaze. I have been at sea for most of my life. I have taken risks, escaped disasters, been hunted down, and stood at the top of the times. But now, the only things I value are my children. Whitebeard raised his hand to wipe the ale drops from his mouth, but there was no hint of drunkenness in his eyes. I'm not afraid of dying in Marineford, but I can't let Teach get my abilities. Whitebeard spoke in a low voice. If Blackbeard succeeds, what will he do? You saved my life in Marineford, which is equivalent to saving the entire Whitebeard pirates. We all owe you a life. We must repay such a great favor. Under Whitebeard's eager and sincere gaze, Levi was not surprised by these words. He knew that Whitebeard was an upright person, and these words were determined to repay him. Levi breathed a sigh of relief and pushed the wine glass in front of him forward. As you should have heard in Marineford, I only got involved in the Summit War because I wanted to discuss the Celestial Dragons and world government. Advertisement. I just did what I wanted to do. Levi's eyes were calm. But it is a fact that it was your turn to help us. From now on, the Whitebeard pirates will be your most loyal allies, and our relationship cannot be broken by anyone. Whitebeard just looked at Levi like this, with a touch of solemnity in his calmness. Levi was not in a hurry to agree, and chuckled. Are you sure? Now that I have offended the world government to death, you can imagine the danger of your alliance with me. Whitebeard raised the barrel and drank half the wine before raising his head. If I die in Marineford, and Shock Fruit's ability is taken away by Blackbeard, then many people in the entire Whitebeard pirate group may be left there forever. Without our protection, thousands of islanders throughout the Whitebeard Sea will return to a miserable life of darkness. You saved not just me, nor just the Whitebeard pirates, but everyone in this vast sea. We all owe you our lives. Listening to Whitebeard's extremely emotional tone, the entire tavern fell into silence. Malgao and others knew clearly that what Father Whitebeard said was not exaggerated in the slightest. The strength of the Whitebeard pirates may be due to Whitebeard's own fighting prowess. But it's also closely related to Whitebeard's unbreakable bond with every member of the pirate group. The charm of Whitebeard is not just the terrifying strength that shakes the world. Instead, he treats every pirate he recognizes as his own child. This 0.9% bond of kinship is more unbreakable than any organization. But this also means that once something happens to Whitebeard, the backbone of this big family, it will be a devastating blow to the strength and unity of the entire White group. Margao and others could not imagine how lonely and sad the pirate group would be without Whitebeard. So the moment Whitebeard proposed to lead the entire Whitebeard pirates to form an alliance with Levi, everyone had no objection. For them, even if they let themselves die, they are willing to exchange for Whitebeard's life. What's more, Levi not only rescued Whitebeard, but also rescued their brother Ace from hell. And this day, it was called by later generations, the two most powerful forces in the world formed an alliance. Chapter 170 Kaido Golden Lion joins forces. Please subscribe. At the same time, New World Cake Island. Charlotte Linlin is about to enjoy the freshly baked cake. But he was stunned when he saw the letter handed to him by his son, and he didn't even react when the cake he was about to put into his mouth fell to the ground. She hated it most when someone suddenly disturbed her while she was enjoying her delicious food, but her sons also knew her temper very well. Submitting the letter at this time is probably so important that you have to risk your life to convey it to yourself in a timely manner. Take it apart and take a look. Charlotte Linlin looked at the rolling cake at her feet and frowned, leaning on the back of her chair impatiently. Perospero trembled under his mother's impatient gaze and hurriedly tore open the ink pad with the words, World Government Expedited Delivery, printed on it. Mom, this is news from the Holy Land Mariajoy. Perospero shouted. This was the first time he saw a letter of this size. Especially the content in the letter made him extremely shocked. Before he could recover, the letter had been pulled away by Charlotte Linlin. 17 inches these bastards. Do you think I, Charlotte Linlin, am Kaido's idiot? How dare they ask us to help wipe the mess between Celestial Dragons and Levi? Seeing Linlin's terrifying and furious look, many ministers and guards in the castle fell to their knees in fear. Where did this letter come from? Facing the ant's crazy eyes that were choosing and devouring people, Perospero's spine trembled and he shouted loudly. It was sent personally by the leader of the secret spy agency Eni's lobby. Someone from the CP agency. The ant frowned and glanced straight at the castle door with her cold eyes. Let him get in. Using the clairvoyance effect brought about by seeing and hearing, she instantly discovered the royal spies waiting outside the castle gate. Under the leadership of Perospero, the newly appointed CP leader Nero walked into the castle. Looking up, the mighty emperor on the throne looked strange. Nero stepped forward quickly, holding the exquisite cake in his hand and planning to present it to Charlotte Linlin in person. Take your gift and go back. The terrifying pressure of one of the four emperors swept through the castle instantly. Advertisement. Nero's face froze, and he didn't know whether he should drop his right leg when he stepped forward. Even though he was mentally prepared on the way to Wangguo, he never expected that Charlotte Linlin would not even give him a chance to speak. It reminds me that the former top person in charge of CP was ruthlessly wiped out by the five elders because of his poor handling of the Levi incident. Nero worked hard and continued to move forward despite Charlotte Linlin's pressure. If Auntie, one of the four emperors, is not invited out of all nations to unite to encircle Levi, the next person to be wiped out by the five elders will be herself. The world government may have nothing to do with Levi, but it is very easy to kill yourself. Since you're going to die no matter what, it's better to take a bold plunge. You are so brave. Seeing that Nero still dared to step forward, Perospero and many ministers looked nervous and wanted to take action. They know very well how terrible it is to make Charlotte Linlin angry, and the right thing to do is to wear it out before mom gets angry. Unfortunately, it was not Perospero and the others' turn to take action, and streaks of bright red bloodline dyed the floor red along Nero's face. Under the gaze of everyone, Nero looked sad. Sweet and fishy blood spurted out from Nero's mouth and nose. The pressure from one of the four emperors tore his right lung, and he couldn't move forward no matter what. Charlotte Linlin sat upright in the throne, her eyebrows raised when she saw this scene, and she completely retracted her aura. Nero got a chance to breathe and fell to the ground, but was unable to get up again. He could only look up at the throne with his neck twitching. The ecstasy of surviving the disaster emerged from his eyes. He made the right bet. But what the ant said next completely made Nero give up. Levi just cut you Marineford in half, and you still have the guts to come to the door. Now that Levi is so famous in the world, what can you Marine do if you unite four emperors? What's more, there is no conflict of interest between Wangguo and Levi. There is no need to take risks to offend such a strong person. Auntie is not stupid. If she attacks Levi now, she will have to face more than just the four emperors pirate group. They also had to face the Whitebeard pirates. The whole world has seen Levi resurrecting Whitebeard. Who believes that the two forces have no relationship in private? It's better to give world government and celestial dragons a headache with such a tough nut to crack. Advertisement. If they could get Kaido to take action, Auntie would wake up laughing in the middle of the night. So if Levi can kill Marineford with a knife, can't he destroy Wano Kuni? Thinking of this, Charlotte Linlin's last interest in this matter completely disappeared. Looking back at Nero, the ant snorted coldly. Throw it out. After saying that, he didn't bother to pay attention to Nero, who was lying on the floor and didn't know whether to live or die. He turned directly back to Perospero and ordered. From today on, anyone with a world government background will not be allowed to enter the island. Especially the guys from the CP agency, drive them all out of Fang country. Wano Kuni Island of Ghosts. The CP agency found Auntie and Kaido at almost the same time. Unlike Nero, who is responsible for the direction of all nations, Kaido has not shown any obvious resistance to the alliance initiated by the world government. The reason for such completely different negotiation results is also related to the bargaining chip used by the world government to negotiate with the 197 four emperors. A way to control two devil fruits at the same time. And devil fruit, which is used to build armies in large quantities. Your world government is so generous. Kaido laughed wildly, shaking the surrounding walls and trembling violently. The CP organization that had surrendered outside the palace shivered and did not dare to make any sound. There is no doubt that the bargaining chip used by world government to win over Kaido is very tempting. Kaido's sphere of influence has reached a bottleneck stage, and a breakthrough will definitely require a strong dose of medicine. The devil fruit and technology promised by the world government are indeed the key to push Kaido further towards its goal. But the opponents they face are not simple either. Levi's performance at Marineford some time ago spread throughout the world in a very short time through broadcast. Levi's words have now set off a nautical trend around the world. Countless careerists spent all their wealth to build fleets and set off for the new world. The whole world's oceans became lively because of Levi's words. This scene can't help but remind people of the great era caused by Roger on the execution platform. Kaido narrowed his eyes slightly and glanced at a figure standing in the shadow of the palace not far away. Golden Lion. What do you think? Chapter 171. Hold high the banner of freedom, please subscribe. Golden Lion Shiki crossed his arms and leaned against a huge wooden pillar deep in the palace. Under the shadow, it is completely impossible to get a glimpse of the Golden Lion's expression. Only the faint aura of the strong man formed a certain aura that repels all living beings. This is your territory, so naturally you make the decision. Hearing Golden Lion's tone, which seemed to have no intention of getting involved in this matter, Kaido rubbed his head and revealed an intriguing smile. Since you want me to make the decision, don't hold me back when you fight Levi in the future. Kaido stood up suddenly with laughter, and the antique wine glass in his hand exploded into a ball of scrap metal. The pride and momentum naturally released in his words actually made the entire palace tremble slightly. The CP member who knelt down outside the palace and waited for the order turned pale, resisting the urge to vomit blood and pressed his head against the floor. Under the pressure of Kaido, one of the four emperors, he didn't dare to move at all. Go back and tell your celestial dragon's master that I, Kaido, have taken over this job. However, I want all the rewards in advance, and they will be delivered to me within 3 days. Hey hey ha ha ha. The lawless laughter echoed over Ghost Island for a long time, and it never dissipated for a long time. No matter how drastic changes occur in the world, time still moves forward ruthlessly every minute and every second. It has been half a month since the Summit War ended. If this half month were placed at any time in history, I am afraid it would be just an ordinary repetitive fragment in the record. However, with Levi's strong performance in Summit War, and the death threats from the world government against celestial dragons. As a result, the excitement on the sea during this half month was enough to leave a strong mark in the text of history. Levi's intervention led the Summit War to a completely new ending, even though quite a few pirates and marines were sacrificed in the war. But neither the Whitebeard pirates nor Marineford have actually reached the point of breaking their muscles. Whitebeard's survival is estimated to be the biggest variable in this war, but Levi's miracle of coming back to life twice in succession during the war has become a deep-sea bomb that truly detonated the sea. Compared to Roger's treasure hidden at the end of the world, it is both mysterious and full of legend. Advertisement. After so many years, its appeal to ordinary sailors has long been greatly reduced. And Levi's method of resurrecting Whitebeard and Ace in front of the whole world's attention is truly a supreme treasure right in front of him. After all, the underground emperors who control most of the world's wealth and power are approaching their twilight years. These dying people must have gone crazy after seeing Levi's performance in Summit War. Ordinarily, Levi's peak combat power displayed in Summit War was enough to scare off those malicious snoopers. It's a pity that the sea is too vast. Such a vast sea cannot teach everyone what it means to act within their ability. Countless pirates and spies have died in the Golden City these days. No need for Levi to do it himself. He sat on the Golden City like a supreme emperor, watching the pirates spill their blood into the sea. But, during this time, it was not just pirates who were seeking money who flocked to the Golden City. Levi's declaration of freedom to start a new era spread throughout the sea through real-time broadcast at Summit War. Countless young people were repeatedly exploited by pirates and marines, leaving their families and families destroyed. These young people had completely despaired of the world. Without Levi, they would have been doomed to die miserably in a corner of endless exploitation in their lives. But when they heard that there was a peerless strong man in the center of the world who dared to exchange his sword for the pride of the sky. The moment he dares to challenge the world government that has ruled the sea for thousands of years and declares a death threat to the celestial dragons. Massive numbers of exploited people set out from all corners of the world in tears. They all gathered towards Levi's forces. These people have long been exhausted by the sharp class conflicts in today's world. He regards the justice preached by Marine as a scourge and avoids it. They don't believe that Marine, who operates under a privileged class like the celestial dragons, is qualified to administer justice. Those who can gain the loyalty of these suffering people. Only Levi, whose hands are stained with the blood of celestial dragons. Advertisement. Naturally, the world government cannot allow this spark ignited on the sea to burn. World government is by no means an idiot willing to relinquish its crown of power to Levi. If no action is taken, the Marine government, whose prestige was greatly reduced during the Summit War, may not even be able to recruit a single sailor. In order to prevent the negative effects from continuing to escalate, the world government has resorted to the same trick again. The first thing to do is to control the media and completely control the information channels in your own hands. The second is to try to eliminate the negative impact of the Marine government as the loser in the Summit War. The five elders handled this matter very skillfully, and directly put the blame for the defeat entirely on the head of the former Marine Marshal Sengoku. Relying on the iron-fisted suppression of Sakazuki, whose prestige in the Marine army is second only to Sengoku, the turmoil caused by the defeat within Marine was finally suppressed by force. Sakazuki is definitely not the best candidate for Marine's new marshal at this stage. Unfortunately, after negotiations within the world government, Garp refused to change his position and insisted on continuing to serve in the Marine as vice admiral. Faced with such a stubborn person who won't listen to anyone except Sengoku, five elders could only give up the decision to promote Garp and had no choice but to hold their noses and admit it. After experiencing the defeat in the Summit War, world government, which has suffered a bitter pill, cannot make any progress at all. Therefore, in order to fight against the red fire, King Qian's seedlings that are gradually starting to set ablaze on the sea, the world government's last resort is to recruit troops aggressively. In particular, almost all well-known masters who walk on the sea have received generous offers from Marine. After the war, the five elders also knew that times had changed. In the new era, we must have enough senior Marine generals who can control the situation. Relying on the human sea tactic, a few broken guns cannot pose a threat to an existence like Levi. The sea is stormy and turbulent. The major forces and organizations are forced by the increasingly dull and tense situation. We can only remain silent, accumulate strength, and try our best to survive. But on a certain sea area in New World, it is peaceful and relaxing. Chapter 172, the last piece of the new Marine puzzle, Zephyr. Please subscribe. New World Golden City. Half a month has passed since Levi returned to the Golden City after the Summit War. During this time, the arms business in the city was doing quite well, with Levi, a peerless master who could cut off Marineford with one sword, in charge. The scale of arms manufacturing is growing rapidly every day. Even the military factory that has never stopped working has been built, and marine fire can be manufactured and put into the market every day. A new round of factory planning has also entered the preparatory stage. In the half month since the Summit War ended, a large number of capable people and strangers wandering at sea have joined Levi's banner. The reputation of the Golden City also increased along the way, becoming one of the most famous holy places in the entire world. As the protagonist who starts a new era, it's rare for Levi to enjoy a relaxing vacation away from the storm at sea. Lying with legs crossed on the top terrace of Golden City, the warm sunshine and moist sea breeze make people feel comfortable and drowsy. Stacy knelt down beside him and fed peeled seasonal fruits into Levi's mouth from time to time. With such a beautiful woman by his side, the dazzling sunlight seemed to soften. Stacy looked at Levi, who was dozing off while being served by her, and felt that she couldn't get enough of this cute face. At such a young age, he has already become the most powerful man in the world, and has created a huge force comparable to the four emperors. What fascinates Stacy even more is Levi's courage to stand up to the celestial dragons for the exploited of the world. As one of the former leaders of the Dark World, Stacy knows very well what a terrifying existence the world government under the rule of the five elders is. The marine system built for the celestial dragons to rule the world for thousands of years has already spontaneously formed a stable effect like a copper wall. Ordinary resistance organizations like the Revolutionary Army cannot create waves in a short period of time. Is this because the Revolutionary Army led by Long did not work hard enough? I'm afraid things may not be that simple. Wounds are easy to heal, poverty is easy to move, and people are easy to save. But only people's hearts are hard to change. Without earth-shaking perseverance, it will be impossible to eradicate the deep-rooted fear of world government in people's hearts. If Long continues to lead the Revolutionary Army to resist tenaciously, he may one day be able to awaken the oppressed BHFC all over the world. Advertisement. However, after Levi was born, people had new choices. Stacy lowered her head and looked at Levi with eyes full of intoxication. This is the man she chose. In Summit War, you single-handedly create a new world and usher in a new era. Use an indestructible iron fist to smash the iron curtain of power deliberately created by the world government under the attention of the whole world. Let the suffering people in every corner of the world truly raise their heads voluntarily and look at the dawn that pierces the dark night. People's hearts have finally changed. What the heroes who resisted the cruel rule of the celestial dragons could not do for thousands of years. Levi used the most direct and effective method to complete it. The soft smile at the corner of Stacy's mouth became gentler and gentler. She peeled off the skin of the grape on her fingertips and brought it to the corner of Levi's mouth. After taking the crystal fruit pulp handed over by Hancock, Levi looked at the beauty beside him and smiled. What are you looking at? You are smiling so happily. Levi raised the back of his hand and gently touched Stacy's cheek. The delicate touch felt like high-quality silk tribute from a small southern island. Stacy moved gently, grabbing Levi's palm and interlacing her fingers with each other. Looking at my man. The smile of a beautiful woman can really bring disaster to the country and the people. Levi gently held her in his arms and whispered. How is the preparation for the new Marine that was previously planned? Stacy was unwilling to resist Levi's toughness and threw herself on Levi's chest. Changing into a comfortable position, the two of them looked at the infinite blue sky above their heads. The preparation for the new Marine is just the last step away. Hearing Stacy's response, Levi nodded and added, I plan to find someone who will become the last missing piece of the puzzle for the new Marine. After hearing this, Stacy thought for a moment and then said, who is that person? Do we need to use the intelligence network to find him? Levi shook his head and sat up from the recliner. He stared into the distance and said softly. He is Zephyr, the former Marine Admiral whom Marine calls unkillable. Advertisement. After the two got down to business, Levi was planning to set off to find Zephyr immediately. Two figures suddenly passed through the vertical wind channel of Golden City and quickly approached the terrace. Stacy kissed the corner of Levi's mouth, then stood up and sat aside in a sensible manner. Levi raised his eyebrows and looked towards the edge of the terrace. The next second, Sora and Shang suddenly jumped onto the terrace from the central air duct. There were two bloody heads in his hands. Seeing some dirty blood falling onto the terrace, Levi's expression remained as calm as ever. What's the number today? Remove the hidden sentry, the eighth one. Kong's expression was numb and his tone was cold. The bear on the side opened his palm, and two chapters with Bloodline's ID appeared. Levi glanced around and saw that he was indeed from the CP agency. Ever since he returned to the Golden City after winning the Summit War, CP organizations appeared one after another. Levi was already used to the spy being caught by Sora and Shang this time. It's just that Levi is too lazy to do things like catching rats. After the bear woke up, he learned that he had been rescued by Levi, and with Bonnie's relationship, he naturally joined Levi's team. Especially after seeing the wind of resistance that Levi has set off around the world during this period. He is even more willing to be a member of Levi's Admiral and let him be driven. After Shang and Kong saw Levi nodding, they quickly left the terrace with the two heads and continued to guard the confidential parts of the Golden City. The claws of the world government's hawks are getting longer and longer. Stacy came to Levi with a sneer, and fell asleep with a cold light flashing from the water. The time is coming. After the new Marine comes out, they will have a headache. Levi turned around and hugged Stacy's slender waist and walked towards the edge of the terrace with a faint smile on his lips. How are you going to find Zephyr? Stacy asked with a chuckle, facing Levi. Easy. World News Financial, I'm Morgans. Chapter 173. After half a month, Nemu takes action. Please subscribe. After saying goodbye to Stacy, Levi took Yinmeng and rushed directly to the World News Financial News office. He believed that as the most well-informed person in the world, Morgans would be able to bring him some surprises. Levi's departure from the Golden City caused a huge shock to various spy agencies. The CP officer in charge of the Secret Service in Golden City changed his expression, stood up suddenly, and rushed to the window to look at the sky. Levi is on the move again. As Levi has been labeled extremely dangerous by the world government, his every move is naturally monitored by spies from various forces. Only half a month after the Summit War ended, Levi left the Golden City. This move really made the spies hidden in the Golden City feel very nervous. Members of the CP organization hidden in every corner looked up to the sky. With their eyesight, they could only confirm that Levi had left the Golden City, but they had no idea where this dangerous man was going. Transmit the information immediately. The CP agency official stared at the sky and slowly shed a cold sweat, and then looked back for a long time. The sea has only been calm for half a month, and now we are in big trouble again. Even if the officials did not give instructions, their subordinates would react to Levi as soon as he left the Golden City. For such a major matter, the CP agency did not dare to delay at all and hurriedly reported the information to the world government at all levels. Holy Land Mariajoy. After receiving the information, the 5 elders tried to suppress Wei as soon as possible. Sakazuki, who was officially appointed half a month later, was appointed in advance. This decision caused a huge shock within Marine, and everyone knew that 5 elders' operation could only be a helpless move in response to Levi's actions. The entire Marine Marshal's appointment process is also the most boring among all previous Marshal changes. Even Sakazuki himself left the game early because of the cumbersome Marine stuff. As a result, Marshal Marine's personnel transfer was completed in a tacit and low-key manner within the government. All of this made the protagonist Sakazuki feel angry, and her hatred for Levi became even more unforgettable. 3 days later, Sakazuki wanted to regain his strength and revive Marine's prestige in the shortest possible time. Directly move the naval headquarters from Marineford to the G1 branch in New World. Although Marineford's reconstruction work is still progressing in an orderly manner, Sakazuki swears in his heart. We will never return to Marineford, the place of shame, until we take down Levi, who has insulted the majesty of the government. After the Summit War ended, the criminal riots in Impel Down were completely controlled. Although it only took half a day to suppress the rebellion, a large number of criminals still escaped from Impel Down. In order to suppress these criminals as soon as possible, Sakazuki launched an unprecedented arrest operation. But on this day, 3 days after Levi left, the Golden City welcomed an unexpected guest. Advertisement. He was wearing a purple coat and was wearing a walking stick. He looked like an ordinary, down-and-out old man, not attracting the slightest attention from the people around him. When he got close enough, he smiled and raised his head. He closed his eyes tightly and looked at the majestic Golden City sailing on the sea. Feeling the lingering breath in the air, a trace of surprise appeared on his face, and the staggered wounds on his forehead began to squirm. That person who just left, is it Levi? With a look of regret on his face, he made a special trip from East Blue, but ultimately failed. Pity. Just when he was about to find a place to stay, 2 huge figures silently blocked his way. What's going on? Is there going to be a fight? I don't know. What's going on with those 2 huge guys? Are they from the giant race? Don't talk nonsense. That person is responsible for guarding this Golden City. It was only then that the dense flow of people around seemed to react. During the commotion, he hurriedly vacated the place where the 2 of them were, not daring to come near and disturb them at all. The people who appeared in front of Yishao were naturally Shang and Kong, who were responsible for guarding the Golden City. Under Yishao's deliberate concealment, ordinary fish could not discover his true experience. But this method cannot hide the 2 masters Kong and Shang. In fact, the 2 of them noticed a smile a long time ago. I just saw that the other party was not prepared for the hostility of the Golden City and did not cause trouble, so I turned a blind eye. Now that they saw Yishao planning to go deep into the Golden City, the 2 of them couldn't sit still and had to come forward to find out the details of Yishao. Don't be nervous, you 2. When Yishao saw that someone had discovered him, he simply stopped hiding his strength. Ruo Yorao's aura slowly rolled away from his feet, but it did not pose any threat to the sky and the bears. I'm just here to meet your boss. If you're not welcome, I'll leave right now. Kong and Shang felt the aura released by Yishao and did not dare to neglect them. After looking at each other, they decided to leave Yishao in the Golden City temporarily. A master of this level can only make a decision after Levi returns. On the other side of the sea, a thrilling sea chase is going on. The last world destroyer to leave the Impel Down, Momo Fruit ability user Burndy Waldo. During the escape, his whereabouts were exposed and he was chased by the Marine fleet. After several days of pursuit and interception. Advertisement. Waldo finally had no choice but to fight head-on. A Marine vice admiral stood on the bow of the warship, looking coldly at the pirate ship floating on the sea ahead. These days of pursuit should have exhausted your physical strength. I advise you to give up as soon as possible, obey me and Impel Down and spare your life. Several days of pursuit and interception not only made Waldo exhausted and fled everywhere, but also made Marine who was chasing Waldo exhausted. Fortunately, today's fleet encirclement finally trapped Waldo's pirate ship in this sea area. Point 00. Even Waldo is unable to fly when surrounded by the Marine main fleet. Faced with such an urgent situation, Waldo looked cold and showed no intention of surrender. Seeing Waldo's stubborn attitude of not saying a word and intending to resist to the end, Marine Vice Admiral's eyes showed murderous intent. Just when he was about to order the fleet to fire and completely blast Waldo into the bottom of the sea, a harsh sound broke through the air suddenly from above. The terrifying sword power falls from the sky. Everyone in Marine suddenly looked up in shock. I saw a flash of golden sword energy falling suddenly and striking hard on the bridge of a warship. Boom. The sudden burst of terrifying sword energy is surging. It actually shattered the Marine warship with a displacement of 30,000 tons in an instant. Vice Admiral and Waldo looked at the figure surrounded by sword energy almost at the same time. No way. How could it be a little girl? In full view, a petite girl with black hair, black skirt and twin tails appeared at the center of the explosion. What's going on with this power? Why did she take action? Who is she? A series of doubts swirled violently in Waldo's heart. He was very sure that he had never seen this little girl. No matter what, this is an opportunity. If you want to be grateful, let's wait until we escape. After making up his mind, Waldo stopped thinking and began to carefully pay attention to the flaws of the Marine fleet, intending to forcefully break through and continue running away. No one noticed. A figure floated slowly high above the battlefield. It was Levi. There is a little less update today, and I will make up for 3 more updates tomorrow. Chapter 174. The Strong Man in the Deep Fleet, the newly promoted Admiral Green Bull. Please subscribe. Levi stood on the clouds, overlooking the war-torn sea below. As Waldo being hunted, Levi raised his eyebrows slightly. He happened to see this happening while passing by, and he also happened to test Yinmeng's ability. This is the first time he has taken action since Yinmeng was created by him. Exploding a warship with one sword, this is not the limit. Levi looked down at the sea with a smile on his face. Below, under Nemu's sudden attack, Marine quickly became nervous. Just when Waldo was about to take action, a figure suddenly appeared from the deck of the Marine flagship. The arrogant and domineering momentum rushed to the battlefield before anyone else, and the waves that surged across the sea shattered under the pressure of that aura. Green Bull Admiral, Marine Vice Admiral, who looked slightly flustered, immediately calmed down when he saw the figure coming out of the air. During the world recruitment, a monster among monsters joined Marine, and as soon as he appeared on the scene, he climbed to the top of 620 at the speed of a rocket. Its name is Green Bull. New Marine Admiral. The name of Green Bull was not written in the original work, so the title, Green Bull, was used. Green Bull, Admiral. Waldo's expression changed, and he looked at the figure coming out of the air with a look of fear. Before that, he had vaguely noticed that there were strong men in the Marine fleet. But I didn't expect Admiral to be in charge. I saw a tall and burly man with green hair approaching quickly, his military uniform making a hunting sound as he moved at high speed. What a terrifying aura. The strong sense of oppression alone is not inferior to that of Sakazuki and others. A line of cold sweat left on Waldo's face, and the previous experience of fighting with Marine Admiral came to mind. That's not a good memory. Before he could warn the strange little girl not far away to be more careful. The newly appointed Marine Admiral has arrived at everyone's head. The Green Bull suddenly stopped in the sky, and the moment its eyes flashing with violent aura glanced at Nemu, it actually lowered the sea surface by several meters. Although I don't like to attack women, interfering with the execution of justice is another matter. Tell me your origins. The Green Bull seems to have the incredible ability to stay in the air, like a steel nail nailed into the void. The wild and uninhibited momentum was released, and just one person shocked the entire battlefield. Even the thousands of Marines on the warship deck were trembling under the pressure of Liu Sheng's wild momentum. Faced with such terrifying aura oppression, Yinmeng just turned away his cold eyes and paid no attention to Green Bull's words. It's interesting. Green Bull chuckled. Advertisement. Next moment, amidst the sudden roar of explosions, the Green Bull's speed exploded one after another, turning into meteor-like meteors and heading towards Nemu. Boom. The violent shock wave completely shattered the wreckage of the warship, and the tsunami more than 10 meters high knocked the surrounding warships upside down. Even the previous Marine Vice Admiral was blown away by the impact of the air wave. Damn it. Can that little girl withstand such a terrible attack? Waldo's eyes were full of shock and anger. Nemu obviously came to help because she was surrounded by Marine. How could Waldo stand by and watch when he was in danger now? Even though Yinmeng's strength is astonishing, it doesn't mean that Waldo can't do anything. Hold on to. Waldo roared, jumped up from the deck of the pirate ship, and fell towards the broken warship like a cannonball. The man was in midair, and a ray of light soaring into the sky suddenly burst out. Waldo paused. He stared blankly at the scene in front of him. Even the charging action has stopped. Nemu blocked the Green Bull's attack. It actually prevented him from leaving for a short time. What? How is that possible? How could that little girl be able to block the attack of the Green Bull Admiral? Am I dreaming? Nearly 1,000 Marines held their heads high and stared at the strange scene happening in front of them with wide eyes. Under the terrifying offensive of the Green Bull Admiral, Nemu was completely enveloped by a sword that soared into the sky. Every time he is hit by the Green Bull Admiral's iron fist, the sword light will flash with a dazzling flash, completely deflecting the Green Bull's attack. It's getting more and more interesting. The attack was ineffective, but the smile on Green Bull's face became even brighter. The test was over, and the Green Bull simply closed his hands and stepped into the air, walking a few steps back to the Marine's deck. At this moment, thousands of Marines stared with wide eyes, watching Nemu, who was safe and sound under the protection of sword light, fall back to the sea. After Waldo was ejected, he felt relieved and jumped back to his pirate ship. Even the Green Bull's attack couldn't break through the little girl's defense. Stepping forward to help was a waste of worry. Seeing Marine deflated, Waldo didn't feel at ease at all. The strength displayed by the little girl was so terrifying that it made one's heart tremble. No matter what the opponent's intention is. Advertisement. But one thing is certain, Yinmeng has resolved his crisis to a certain extent. Escape. Waldo's eyes flickered. He is not a good person, he has experienced betrayal, and he hates the word betrayal, he himself hates it deeply. Waldo stared intently at the Green Bull. He won't leave. He is waiting for a chance to defeat the Green Bulls. On the other side, Green Bull fell into deep thought after returning to the warship deck. Of course he has never seen this little girl, but as a new admiral, he will naturally pay more attention to the major events that have happened recently. Especially Levi, who ushered in a new era. Regarding his materials, Lu Niu turned them over and over in private no matter how many times he read them. At this time, after seeing the little girl and the familiar kendo skills, Lu Niu remembered something. When the Golden City massacred the Celestial Dragons, a little girl seemed to appear next to Levi. This information is all transmitted from the secret sentry of the CP organization installed in the Golden City, and there is no doubt about its accuracy. Young, mysterious, powerful with a sword. Is it a coincidence? Or Levi is nearby. Green Bull applied for a moment, and the aura on his body was completely different from before. Crackling. A trace of extremely fine lightning flashed and shattered in the air. Before everyone could react, what happened? Thousands of Marines felt their eyes blur, and their fingertips felt a stinging sensation like an electric shock. Waldo turned pale and looked at the Green Bull almost subconsciously. Even Nimong looked at her like a Green Bull, and the long knife in her hand was slowly lifted up by her. Under everyone's gaze, Green Bull did nothing and actually floated slowly from the deck of the warship at 1.4. That is at this moment. Dazzling flashes of light and thunderous explosions. The Green Bull crackled all over, but in a short period of time, it turned into a giant more than 4 meters tall. The exploding thunder and lightning unscrupulously destroyed everything around Green Bull, and the alloy-forged warship deck turned red and softened under the chain-like thunder bombardment. Levi, are you watching? The Green Bull opened its mouth, and its sound was like thunder. Once it made a sound, it shook the surrounding sea and set off huge waves. Thousands of Marines covered their ears and fell to their knees with pain on their faces. Only Waldo and Nemu are like the only remaining trees in the storm, standing firm in the waves. Purple lightning flashed out from the Green Bull's eyes. Coupled with its huge and burly body, the ferocious energy released invisibly could affect the changes in the sky. It was really more terrifying than any ferocious beast in the world. Chapter 175: The ability to kill everyone in Mariajoy silently. Please subscribe. Levi looked down at the sea below his feet, which was completely obscured by lightning and black fog, and whispered softly. About there. Nemu's ability test. Levi already knew it, and there was no need for Nemu to continue taking risks. Levi directly dissipated the energy needed to stay in the air, like a meteorite falling from the sky, instantly breaking through the pressure of the Green Bull that enveloped the entire sea area. Boom. In the flash of lightning, the Green Bull's steps towards Yinmeng stopped for an instant, and its head with big horns suddenly raised to look at the person falling from the sky. It's you, Levi. The roar of the Green Bull was incomprehensible to human words, and the terrifying thunder shook the entire space. Levi didn't even look at the Green Bull's anger. After reaching the appropriate height, he nodded to Nemu and said, "Leave the rest to me." Nemu didn't listen to anyone except Levi. After receiving the order, Nemu put away her sword and left the core area of the battlefield. Before leaving, Nemu glanced at Waldo on the pirate ship not far away. On a pirate ship, Waldo stared at Levi, who appeared on the battlefield, although he had never met Levi. But before I left Impel Down, I felt Levi's powerful aura streaking across the sky. Why is Levi here? Is that little girl the same as Levi? Waldo's eyes changed several times, but he finally anchored the pirate ship and left it on the battlefield. Whatever Levi and that little girl's purpose was in attacking Marine. It is a fact to help yourself out of trouble. Since you have received a favor, you have to repay it. In the sky, the Green Bull with devil fruit activated is like a humanoid monster bathed in lightning. The exposed skin not only grows a lot of stiff black hair. On its head grew 2 ferocious horns that were several meters long. Under the light of the thunderstorms that kept flashing across the sky, it looked extremely scary. Zone Phantom Beast Species Niu Niu Fruit Kui Niu Form. Faced with the turbulent momentum of the Green Bull, Levi started today's template system in a hurry. Advertisement. Ding. Today's template. Yamanaka Old Man FGO. Old Man Yamanaka. It's Hassan bin Saba, the legendary Old Man Yamanaka, the crowned assassin. Levi was thinking in his mind as he stared at Lu Sheng in the distance. I heard that Marshal Sakazuki lost to you. He was indeed an opponent that people expected. As soon as Green Bull finished speaking, he turned into an afterimage, roaring and charging towards Levi with thunder and lightning. The moment it disappeared, half of the warship at the feet of the Green Bull evaporated in the explosion. The flashing thunder and lightning are not only extremely destructive, but can also cause terrifying high temperatures in a very short period of time, melting everything around them instantly. Zone Devil Fruit with special powers. Levi was not afraid at all when facing the Green Bull that rushed in front of him. He even had time to analyze what kind of devil fruit the Green Bull had eaten. Boom. Following the Green Bull's earth-shattering punch, the surrounding sea surface spontaneously formed 2 tsunamis under the high pressure, pressing hard on the 2 of them from top to bottom. The power passing through the body has not attenuated at all, and is completely poured into the deep sea. A white line penetrated thousands of meters into the deep sea, and Tuan completely absorbed the power contained in Lu Sheng's punch. After throwing this punch, the Green Bull turned around suddenly. The bloodshot eyes kept scanning around, as if looking for something. But Levi was floating quietly next to the Green Bull, and the previous extremely destructive attack did not pose any threat to him at all. The enemy is right around you, but the Green Bull just can't see it. Such a scene is so strange to the eyes of many Marines on the sea. What on earth is the Green Bull Admiral doing? Isn't Levi by his side? Why can't I shoot accurately at such a short distance? What happened? Not only Marine and others were confused and puzzled, but even Waldo on the other side of the pirate ship felt a chill rising from the tips of his ears. He saw it quite clearly, Green Bull's earth-shattering 10 punches were indeed terrifying. Give Waldo another 10 years of training, and he won't even want to be touched by that kind of fist. But when the Green Bull was about to hit Levi, its fist actually hit Levi and hit the sea hard. Advertisement. Levi didn't move, never moved in the first place share. Waldo could swear this to his deceased brother. If the problem doesn't lie with the Green Bull, then there must be something wrong with Waldo's eyes. Under the gaze of more than 1,000 pairs of eyes on the battlefield, Levi slowly spoke. Don't look, I'm right behind you, haven't you noticed yet? Levi's calm voice suddenly came from behind the Green Bull, causing him to retreat suddenly. He didn't dare to look back until he was dozens of meters away. How is it possible? I clearly hit your head. The Green Bull spit out the words, and blue-purple lightning continued to spray out from its mouth, igniting the air. Levi chuckled and lifted up the demon sword that suddenly appeared in his hand. The mysterious runes with an ominous aura appeared on the demon sword that flashed with scarlet luster. As soon as it appeared, the sky over the entire battlefield instantly turned gloomy. Aura masking is just a small skill to eliminate one's own aura. Just as Levi finished speaking, the scarlet runes on the demon sword seemed to flash suddenly. The invisible position that previously only included the Green Bull spread instantly, enveloping the vast sea area of several kilometers around it in an instant. All the Marines, including Green Bull, and Waldo on the pirate ship lost their judgment on Levi's position at the same time. People can clearly see where Levi is, but their mental judgment about Levi's location is completely invalid. Disappeared. Green Bull's eyes widened, but his mind was completely unable to judge the angle and distance between himself and Levi. Before the Green Bull could take action, the runes on the demon knife in Levi's hand flickered again. The invisible position that completely enveloped several kilometers of sea was suddenly shattered. The judgment about Levi's spatial location information once again appeared in everyone's mind. What the hell kind of ability is this? Isn't this too pervert? Can it actually affect everyone's perception? If we were to become his enemy, wouldn't it mean that we wouldn't even know when he would die? Marine was suddenly in an uproar, and people looked at Levi with extreme fear and anxiety. This man not only has the authority of God to resurrect the dead, but now he also has the ability to kill people silently like Pluton. If Levi wanted to, couldn't he enter the Holy Land Mariajoy at any time and kill everyone silently? Hurry up and fire in support of the Green Bull Admiral. Amidst Vice Admiral's roar, the Marines woke up from a dream and turned their guns to aim at Levi. Advertisement Chapter 176. Going crazy, like the Green Bull of Warcraft. Please subscribe. Marine warships began to bombard Levi in the sky one after another. They supported the Green Bull and also wanted to distract Levi. At this stage, no one knows what conditions Levi needs to activate the method that disrupts everyone's perception. All Marine can do is to use the weapons in his hands to try his best to interfere with Levi, so that the Green Bull can seize the opportunity to cause effective damage to Levi. Cheer up. Once Levi breaks through the Green Bull Admiral's offensive, none of us will be able to leave alive. Aim and fire. Don't accidentally injure the Green Bull Admiral. After climbing back to the warship with difficulty from the sea, Marine Vice Admiral tried his best to direct the Marine around him to fire wildly at Levi. Vice Admiral's hoarse roar reminded these Marines of the tragedy that happened on Marineford not long ago. Under the terrible threat posed by Levi, these Marines burst into rare potential. HMPH. Do you think I, Waldo, don't exist? I was chased so miserably by you before, now it's time to get my interest back. Waldo, who had been silent in the previous battle, suddenly jumped into the air from the pirate ship and flew towards the Marine warship like a cannonball. Boom. With a loud noise, the warship that was constantly pouring energy into the sky exploded violently. Waldo jumped up from the breached hole, crashed onto the deck and started killing. Before Levi's arrival, Waldo had been hiding in Tibet from the Marine fleet. At this moment, seeing Marine being defeated made him laugh out loud, and his sabotage actions on the warship became more and more active. Oh no, World Destroyer hasn't been captured yet. The third and fourth ships will open fire immediately. We must stop Waldo. When the Green Bull Admiral escapes from the battle, Waldo will definitely die. Vice Admiral saw that the edge of the fleet was suddenly attacked by Waldo, and he gritted his teeth and issued an order. He knew in his heart that if the Green Bull Admiral could deal with Levi's threat, then Waldo would not be able to create a situation at all. But if Admiral, the Green Bull, was defeated in the battle with Levi. Thinking of this, Vice Admiral couldn't help but shudder. He quickly looked up at the fierce battle in the sky. Just one glance. Advertisement. That's why Vice Admiral's face was so gloomy that he could drip with water. Levi only used the method of confusing the enemy's perception the first time he fought against the Green Bull. It was never used again in the battle with the Green Bull. There is absolutely no need to use this auxiliary means. Under the gaze of thousands of Marines, the Green Bull Admiral after his mad transformation was like a sandbag, unable to fight back under Levi's sword attack. How is this possible? Degree. That's Marine's new admiral, the monster among monsters, the Green Bull Admiral. Even if there is a gap in combat power between Levi and me, how could we be defeated so quickly? The sky kept hearing the dull roar of the Green Bull Admiral being blown away by the sword, and large swaths of crimson bloodline fell from the sky. Such a scene that Marine couldn't accept kept repeating in the sky, and even Marine, who had a firm mind, collapsed. Unconsciously, fewer and fewer warships opened fire on Levi. Except for the roar of artillery fire from time to time on the battlefield where Warsea was, the entire sea surface was so calm that it made people panic. How much time has passed, and the seemingly ordinary boy has defeated almost all the strong men in Marine. Even the newly appointed Green Bull Admiral was defeated without any suspense in the hands of Levi. Such a heavy blow really left everyone in Marine breathless. Marine Vice Admiral's fists clenched loudly, and his eyes when looking at Levi were bloodshot. As Marine Vice Admiral, he is already the mainstay of Marine's combat power system and knows a lot about the military's recent strategic layout. But no matter how much Marshal Sakazuki recruits more Marines and strong men, and no matter how many powerful ships and cannons he creates, what's the point of facing a monster like Levi? Vice Admiral looked at the surrounding Marines. These juniors, who were originally full of fighting spirit before setting off, were all looking up at the sky at a loss. The expressions on the young faces changed from excitement at first, to shock, and finally to numbness and uneasiness. Such changes make Vice Admiral's heart bleed. Although Marine is big, once people lose faith and hope in their hearts, it will be a devastating blow to the entire Marine. If there is no more good news to boost the morale of the military, how many young people with bright hearts will Marine recruit in the next time? Advertisement. Boom. A violent explosion came from the sky. Vice Admiral's heart trembled and he hurriedly looked up. Boom. With a roar, the Green Bull was blown away again. That huge and ferocious body was like a heavy bomb, hitting a warship on the edge of the fleet. Huge waves hundreds of meters high rose into the sky from both sides of the warship, while the warship body had shockingly large cracks that went straight below the waterline. There is no intact part of the Green Bull's body, and there are wounds everywhere on the body caused by Levi's sharp sword. Some of the wounds that were deep enough to see the bones were bloody, and the blood flowing out could even dye the sea around the ship red. Seeing the miserable state of the Green Bull, many Marines had a look of defeat in their eyes, and they couldn't even think of resisting Levi. If Levi hadn't been curious about the devil fruit eaten by the Green Bull, he would never have had the chance to tangle with Levi for such a long time. Levi, you are indeed very powerful. Green Bull vomited a mouthful of blood and supported himself to get up from the warship again. A huge dark hole was revealed behind him, and the Green Bull almost broke it into two pieces without being hit by the warship. Levi floated quietly in midair, looking at the Green Bull and all the Marines with endless waves in his eyes. He just happened to be passing by, and he had no intention of killing all these Marines. The reason why I took action was just to see how capable the newly promoted admiral was, and secondly, I wanted to show off the disgusting good Wang Zhao and the world government. Levi's eyes were calm when he saw the Green Bull struggling to get up in embarrassment. What is the justice of the Green Bull? If it was Porcelino, he wouldn't do it again if he hit him to this extent. Roar. The Green Bull raised its head and roared, and the completely liberated mad power rose into the sky in the form of thunder, completely enveloping the Green Bull and even the ship beneath it. The roar of thunder swept out, directly evaporating the surrounding seawater into a terrifying hole 100 meters deep. The violent vibrations had a huge impact, and the sea surface more than 10 kilometers away made waves with the power of such a powerful devil fruit. Strong energy fluctuations soared into the sky, and even the sky shook. Levi frowned and looked behind him with a hint of surprise in his eyes. The Green Bull was completely transformed by the thunder into a giant monster more than 10 meters long. Advertisement Chapter 177 News that shocked the new G1 headquarters. Please subscribe. The blue-purple thunder is like a chain wrapped around the muscular body. Whenever it roars, it can always cause a huge thunderstorm to bombard the sea. Although there is only one thick leg supporting the warship, the rest can still be seen as a cow-shaped animal. A certain phantom beast fruit related to cows. In the violent thunderstorm, Levi's eyes were filled with sword power, and he calmly looked at the huge monster in front of him that was unleashing the power of thunder wantonly. The newly promoted admiral, has Yishao joined Marine now? Thunder light burst down from the clouds, reflecting the gentle smile in Levi's eyes. Rumble. As Levi gracefully waved his arm down, the supreme sword power was released along the demonic sword in Levi's hand. The sword light was invisible and colorless, instantly crossing the distance between a person and an animal. The giant monster that was about to launch a thunderous strike hundreds of meters away seemed to have been hit hard. Without even the slightest resistance, he collapsed with a roar of pain. The moment it fell into the sea, the huge body quickly shrank, and finally turned back into the green bull covered in blood. The sky shrouded by thunderstorms and black clouds shattered after the sword was swept. A large swath of dazzling sunlight swayed down from the cracked storm, just in time to cover Levi and the green bull that fell into the sea. Such an unpredictable scene turned into a beautiful silhouette under the sunlight and was deeply engraved in the hearts of every Marine on the battlefield. Until the dull impact and huge waves erupted when the green bull fell into the sea hit the fleet. All the Marines woke up from the shock, shouting and moving the warships to rescue the green bull. As a person with fruit abilities, it is no joke for the green bull admiral to fall into the sea. After the battle, Levi was not interested in fighting with these Marines. He still wanted to find Zephyr. In the final analysis, he is not trying to kill everyone in the world, but to make the world government disloyal. Let's go, daughter. Levi picked up Nemu and stepped towards Waldo, who had returned to the pirate ship and was about to slip away. Planning to leave, Waldo was about to cut off the anchor rope directly when he heard the sound coming from the sky and his wrist flicked. Feeling the terrifying aura of faint oppression above his head, cold sweat ran down Waldo's cheeks. Advertisement. This Levi is even more difficult to deal with than Marine, and he doesn't know whether it is a blessing or a curse for him to meet such a dangerous guy. Waldo suppressed the throbbing in his heart and seemed calm on the surface. He turned to look at Levi. Thank you for helping me this time, but if you want me to give you any reward, I'm afraid it's not possible. It's not that I am willing to give it to you, but, now I am penniless. Levi just looked at him and didn't answer his words. Instead, he spoke softly, do you want revenge? Upon hearing this, Waldo's eyes changed. Seeking revenge from Marine, Waldo whispered. His biggest wish was to follow his elder brother to the sea to experience true freedom and see the islands and countries on the sea. However, after being killed on a voyage, he had to attack the ships of the world's nobles and was surrounded by Marines. Originally, he had a chance to lead his men to escape from Marines' pursuit, but at the last moment he was betrayed by the crew. Just because of being betrayed, he was imprisoned in the Impel Down eternal hell and was frozen in ice for 30 years. No, I'm talking about revenge in the true sense. Levi shook his head. What do you mean? Waldo felt that there was something in Levi's words, and his expression changed slightly. What you see may not be true. Levi changed the subject, some interesting scenes flashed deep in his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. The betrayal you encountered was driven by the world government. World government. Waldo's eyes suddenly shrank. As chaotic and noisy thoughts kept flashing in his mind, Waldo almost subconsciously thought of the conflict between Levi and the world government. At the moment of such thinking, Waldo couldn't help but have a trace of doubt in his eyes. This Bob is Levi's conspiracy to sow conflict between himself and the world government. The information has been given to you. You can decide for yourself whether you believe it or not. Levi glanced at him and without explaining much, he directly led Yin Meng into a stream of light and disappeared at the end of the sky. Waldo didn't break into cold sweat until Levi disappeared. This man is too scary. Advertisement. It was only then that the fear deep in Waldo's heart emerged. Levi, the most powerful man of this era, does he need to deliberately lie to provoke conflict between me and the world government? Waldo's eyes flashed slightly. Anyway, you can investigate. Maybe you can know something that you have ignored before. Thinking of this, Waldo turned around and walked into the cabin, speaking in a low voice. Brother, maybe made some unexpected discoveries. At the same time, the original G1 branch is now naval headquarters. In the marshal's office. Today is the third day since Levi left the Golden City, and there is still no information. The newly appointed Marine Marshal Sakazuki suddenly stood up from his seat and slapped his palms on the heavy desk with force, causing cracks. Marshal, calm down, our intelligence network and CP agencies are already investigating. The messenger responsible for handing over to the world government looked pale and hurriedly tried to comfort the furious Sakazuki, but he didn't even dare to raise his head. What a bunch of trash. They don't even know where Levi has gone. Sakazuki's roar penetrated the walls of the office and made the ears of the guards guarding the door ring. After experiencing Marineford's humiliating defeat, Marshal Sakazuki seemed to have become more violent and irritable than before. The guards noticed a hint of uneasiness and panic in each other's eyes, and continued to perform their duties without being distracted. In the office, Sakazuki stared at the thin intelligence document in front of him. The fragmentary information with no white text on it really made him angry. He now only knows that Levi has left the Golden City, but he knows nothing about Levi's whereabouts. The sea is vast, and even if he controls the most powerful marine force in the world, it is not easy to find Levi on the sea. After all, Levi is powerful and his anti-investigation methods are superb. Just when Sakazuki was about to make further adjustments to the headquarters fleet, news like a bolt from the blue came from outside. Marshal Sakazuki, the Green Bull Admiral, was attacked by Levi while chasing Waldo, and his life or death is unknown. Chapter 178 The Lonely Marshal. Please subscribe. Boom. The hard wooden desk that was replaced not long ago finally shattered into pieces under Sakazuki's anger. The exploding fragments not only completely destroyed the entire office decoration, but also shook the body of the communications officer sitting in front of the desk. The guard guarding outside the office looked shocked when he heard a muffled sound behind him. Before he could look back, the messenger smashed the hard door and flew out. The guard's trembling did not affect Sakazuki's anger in the office. I saw that his whole body was surrounded by extremely terrifying torrents of magma, as if he could not vent the anger in his heart without this method. Almost all the unpleasant things during this period were caused by Levi's actions in Summit War. This makes Sakazuki almost uncontrollably angry when he hears this name. It's him again. He ruins my good deeds every time. Sakazuki felt like his lungs were going to explode. When he was a Marine Admiral, Levi tasted failure time and time again. Now that he has been promoted to the new Marine Marshal, the shadow brought by Levi still hangs over his heart like gangrene. Find the green cow first, and there will be a result no matter life or death. Sakazuki said solemnly. The green bull is a monster among monsters in the world recruitment. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to become Marine's new admiral in such a short period of time. Sakazuki doesn't believe that such a person will die quietly in the sea. Today's Marine cannot afford the fault of a Marine admiral being killed in battle. Under the terrifying gaze of Sakazuki, the communications officer who flew out of the office had no time to wipe the dust off his face and crawled towards the communications department. The two guards withdrew their gaze and controlled their trembling legs to guard both sides of the door. With Marshal Sakazuki losing his emotional stability now, if he doesn't behave better, his life may be in danger. After an outburst of anger, Sakazuki stayed alone in the office. The expression on his face was uncertain, and he was staring at the military intelligence report lying in the ruins in front of him. Was Levi's appearance an accident? Or is Levi targeting the Green Bull? When Admiral went out to hunt Waldo, he was unable to receive combat support from the military in time. Advertisement. But Levi has the formidable fighting power to break into Marineford alone, so why would he deliberately choose this opportunity to take action? Waldo is also one of Levi's targets. Sakazuki couldn't even guess that Levi's attack on the Green Bull was just a whim. And the so-called Waldo is even more dispensable in Levi's eyes. If he hadn't happened to meet him, Levi wouldn't have thought of this person at all. Various thoughts kept popping up in his mind, and Sakazuki almost subconsciously raised his head to ask Sengoku for his opinion. As the resourceful general of Marine, Sengoku is always able to deal with such problems that make him helpless. But when he raised his head and opened his mouth habitually, he was stunned by the empty, unfamiliar room. It seems that I still haven't gotten rid of your shadow. A rare bitter smile appeared on Sakazuki's face. He stretched his arms into the empty room in front of him, and finally turned around and looked out of the huge floor-to-ceiling window. Marine will definitely rise in my hands. My justice will never be lost to anyone. As the sun sets, the afterglow reflected from the sea stretches Sakazuki's shadow very long, shrouding the entire office in his back. Marine Cadet Training Base. A group of military cadets who had just passed the screening and entered the military academy chanted slogans and conducted weight-bearing long-distance running training on the school field. Many freshmen looked towards a patch of grass not far away while running. His eyes are full of yearning and respect. On that patch of grass were the 4 oldest top officials in the entire Marine Corps, and they were also the most terrifying group of combat heroes in the Marine Army. These 4 people are none other than Zephyr, Garp, Sengoku and Crane. Among them, except Garp, the other 3 have retired. By the way, during the Summit War, did those Shichibukai really show their role? Sengoku crossed his arms and looked at the energetic group of military cadets not far away with a smile, but his eyes were full of worry about Marine's unknown future. Please give me flowers. Advertisement. Hearing Sengoku's question, he and Garp looked at each other and smiled, but there was a hint of helplessness in their eyes. This Sengoku, even though I have left the helmsman position of leading the entire Marine forward, I still cannot control myself from consuming mental energy for the development of the entire Marine. HMPH. It's just a bunch of pirates. Dogs can't change their shit-eating behavior. It was the biggest failure to agree to unite pirates to participate in the Summit War. Black Arm, Zephyr couldn't control the killing intent in his heart when he heard the pirate's words. The purple hair is constantly swaying with the boiling murderous intention, and the marine cloak that rises in the wind is even more aura. Although Zephyr and Sengoku generally have their arms folded across their chests. But the Zephyr gives people the impression of a murderous and Cold War weapon. Pirates are all pests that plague this sea. They must be crushed firmly and completely. I heard that Zephyr was so disgusted with Marine's decision to join forces with Shichibukai. Sengoku, who was the decision maker at the time, showed no anger at all because he was offended. Even Sengoku always has an irreparable feeling of guilt for his anger towards Zephyr. It is a tragedy that this hardcore man who taught more than 70% of Marine officers would become what he is today. The original accident seemed like it happened yesterday, and no one could forget that tragic scene. So when they saw Zephyr kneeling on a warship full of student corpses with a broken arm, it was impossible to imagine that something had changed in this man's heart. Especially the moment when I learned that Whitebeard too actually received an invitation from the world government to become the 7 warlords of the sea. This man whose heart was swallowed up by hatred and anger was finally suppressed. Zephyr. How kind he was once, now he is so crazy and paranoid. The Marine Admiral who doesn't kill is really transforming into the paranoid Avenger who completely crushes the pirates. Regarding such changes, Sengoku and his team felt that their hearts were full of Yuan He's sympathy. Chapter 179 The Scary Visitor from the Military Academy. Please subscribe. Zephyr. How kind he was once, now he is so crazy and paranoid. The Marine Admiral who doesn't kill is really transforming into the paranoid Avenger who completely crushes the pirates. Regarding such changes, Sengoku and the others felt their hearts filled with sadness and sympathy. This topic is finally over. The failure of Summit War completely failed Marine's plan to check and balance the New World 4 emperors. And the man who caused all this is the Levi who can resurrect Whitebeard and Ace. Sengoku crossed his arms and sighed, the wrinkles on his face seemed to have deepened a lot at this moment. After all, he is not complicated about Levi. In the past, Levi would not take the initiative to do anything, even if he was hunted down or surrounded. And now, he has changed. How is this, 563, different from Zephyr? Also because of this world change. Thinking of Levi's terrifying power in the Summit War, Sengoku's entire face was shrouded in a solemn cloud. Such a man stands on the opposite side of Marine. There is really no way to know what the future will be like. Can Sakazuki really be able to withstand the pressure brought by Levi and led Marine forward? He, who was following Garp, suddenly spoke, and the tone in his tone made the other three people fall into silence. The murderous intention in Sakazuki's heart is too strong. If no one is around to remind him. He spoke deeply, but stopped when he wanted to speak. Zephyr heard this, shaking his head slightly. If Sengoku you stay in Marine, you may still be able to lead Marine back to the glory of justice under the threat of Levi. Sakazuki, he is my student. From what I know about him, the justice in his heart has nothing to do with right or wrong, but at this moment, taking extreme measures may have more effect. As time goes by, the world's view of Marine may change in the name of justice. To pure fear, Zephyr clenched the void in front of him, and the violent fist wind shocked the three of them. Advertisement. Zephyr's words indeed caused quite a shock among the threesome. Sengoku's expression changed several times before he remembered the compulsory transfer letter from the world government. A long sigh sounded from Sengoku's heart. He finally responded to Zephyr's complaint with silence. Zephyr frowned and turned his attention to Garp next to Sengoku. But when Garp saw someone looking at him, he immediately shook his head like a drum. I'd better rest quietly for my old age. I'll want to take a rest after a while. Besides, as you all know, my personality is not suitable for participating in dozens of decisions. Besides, all the old friends have withdrawn, and I have no interest in being alone. After Levi intervened in the war, the world's situation changed drastically every day. Old people like him who have survived from the previous era have to express their feelings of service when facing this familiar and unfamiliar world. He also showed a helpless smile on the side, but his eyes were completely attracted by the young people running loudly on the playground. Feeling the youthful energy of those who worked hard for the Marine cause, all four of them showed reassuring smiles. Even though Marine experienced such a huge blow from the Summit War. As long as there is a steady stream of fresh blood coming from all over the world to the Marine Academy, there is still hope for justice to completely cover every corner of the world. It was such a peaceful scene, but it was ruthlessly destroyed by a rushing messenger soldier who ran quickly. Vice Admiral Garp. A tip came from the front line. Levi left the Golden City 3 days ago, and his whereabouts have not been discovered so far. Although Sengoku and Suru have been relieved of their positions within Marine, Garp still retains the position of Vice Admiral within Marine. The news came naturally. Have you really started taking action? Sengoku's eyes instantly became extremely solemn, and his heavy aura swept away in an instant. Ever since Levi left Summit War, they have been ready for Levi to take action again. Sengoku believed that Sakazuki must have led Marine to prepare for Levi's actions, so he didn't feel much worry or uneasiness in his heart at this time. Garp and he next to him also had solemn expressions on their faces. However, because everyone had already gathered together to discuss this situation before, they were all calm emotionally. Only Zephyr was only responsible for the training of military cadets, so he was not involved in the actual Marine decision-making. Advertisement. At this moment, when he heard the news that Levi had left the Golden City, his face was suddenly so shocked that wrinkles spread out. If there is new news, be sure to report it in time. After receiving a nod from Sengoku, the messenger saluted the 4 people and then turned and left. Levi, why did he leave this time? Crane frowned slightly. She couldn't help but start thinking. Levi has been silent for a few days, and it is inevitable that he will take action again. But what's the purpose? Levi has formed a powerful enough force that is by no means inferior to other emperors. And something that allows Levi, the only emperor of the sea, to take action in person, must be a big deal. Who knows, maybe I'll kill the celestial dragons. Garp seemed to have thought of something interesting and couldn't help laughing. Levi made a vow. As soon as the celestial dragons step out of Mariajoy, they will be mercilessly destroyed. And now Levi moves. Did he really go to Mariajoy to kill someone? The celestial dragons haven't been taking action recently. Crane looked weird. She obviously thought of this. It's just. In the past few days, when faced with the threat of Levi, the celestial dragons have really surrendered without taking a step out of Mariajoy. One can imagine how much the celestial dragons were afraid of Levi, and how much shame they felt. Sengoku's eyes flickered, thoughtfully. And at this time, the sudden piercing alarm suddenly echoed over the entire military academy. At the same time, a breath that was extremely familiar to everyone and could never be forgotten suddenly surged from the port. Levi. He actually came here in person. This sentence made everyone in the room stunned, like clay sculptures. Chapter 180 Suppression of the Port, the starting point of the new Marine. Please subscribe. What is Levi doing coming to Marine at this time? Sengoku almost subconsciously looked at the chaotic team of freshmen on the empty playground around him. Seeing the frightened and anxious expressions on the faces of those young and immature children, the wrinkles on Sengoku's face deepened a little more. Is Levi planning to take action against these children and completely cut off Marine's future? As the teacher of these children, Zephyr was naturally the first to react, although the intensity of his reaction was too intense because the military cadets received threats. But Garp, Sengoku and he suddenly thought of this possibility. Naturally, they would try their best to prevent such a terrible scene from happening. Let's go. Go meet Levi. Following Sengoku's order, the four of them didn't have time to think too much, and headed towards the port as fast as possible. Marine, who was confused along the way, only saw four blurry figures passing through the sky, and the strong wind rolled up the Marine military caps high on everyone's heads. It's Vice Admiral Garp and them. Quick, it's an enemy attack. Everyone, hurry up and follow. Hurry up and report the situation here to Marshal Sakazuki. Others summoned the military headquarters and asked them to finish their exercises and training and return on horseback. After a series of orders came out from the military academy, a large number of Marines rushed towards the port with anxious faces. At the same time, the port was bombarded with a terrible momentum the moment Levi arrived. Boom. The building was shaking, as if it had been hit by an earthquake and was about to collapse at any time. Even Marine, who was originally stuck here, was pressed to the ground the moment the aura swept over him, unable to move at all. The smoke and flames rising into the sky were merely the effects of Levi's arrival. If Levi really plans to attack these Marines, it will probably take less than 3 seconds to sink the island into the deep sea. Facing Levi's terrifying and impossible to prevent terrifying aura. Many Marines had fainted under the impact of that terrifying aura without even knowing where Levi was. Advertisement. Fortunately, Levi only released his momentum to suppress, and did not have any substantive means of attack. Those collapsed buildings were only observation posts built at high and low levels. At this time, it happened to be the time for the Marine observation post to rotate, and there was no sign of Marine at all. It can be said that the timing of Levi's arrival at the military academy is really a coincidence. Such a huge movement did not cause any substantial casualties to the Marine who was standing here. What a terrifying momentum. I can feel Levi's oppression near the military academy. That aura is so powerful. Has Levi awakened Conqueror's Haki? It's a bit similar, but the pressure is much more terrifying than Haki. As the former Marine Marshal Sengoku who awakened Conqueror's Haki among the four, his expression was full of solemnity. No. That's not Conqueror's Haki, but it's no less tricky than Haki. He believed that the momentum suppression effect brought about by activating Conqueror's Haki was far inferior to the momentum Levi showed at this moment to stand up. Hearing Sengoku's solemn tone, the faces of the three Garp people changed. So is Levi really a monster? Be it in terms of actual combat or breath pressure, he is the strongest in the world. When everyone rushed to the scene, they found that there was only one Marine standing in the huge port, while hundreds of other Marine guards fell to the ground and lost their ability to fight. Seeing this scene, Sengoku and he next to him looked at each other, and both saw a hint of happiness in the other's eyes. As one of the few Marines who has overall coordination, the resourceful general. The two of them immediately discovered that all the Marines lying at the port were unconscious, and none of the Marines had lost their life. Several people were very fast. Except for Zephyr who rushed towards Marine standing on the battlefield, the other three rushed to the edge of the port and confronted Levi Yao in the sky. The closer the distance was, the solemn expressions on the faces of Sengoku and Garp became darker and darker. Levi floating in the sky had no intention of taking back his momentum. Levi's eyes were full of calm, and he watched cold sweat break out on the retired Crane's face, struggling to keep up with Garp and Sengoku. Levi looked at the open space where hundreds of Marines were lying on the side again. Song saw that there were only 10 Marines left there who resisted his momentum with his telekinesis and did not faint. Even Marine, the only one standing, had his legs shaking constantly, obviously unable to hold on much longer under the pressure of Levi's momentum. Advertisement. Yin, are you okay? As soon as Zephyr saw Marine's long gray-blue hair spread out behind him, he immediately recognized his identity and sped up and rushed directly in front of Yin. After Zephyr helped him share some of the pressure, Yin's pale face finally gained a trace of color. After taking a long breath, his amber eyes looked toward the sky with vigilance. Teacher, be careful, it's Levi here. Even without Yin's reminder, the four people who came to the scene looked at Levi with solemn faces. Levi, the man who cut off Edward Weeble's arm. What do you want here? Zephyr looked at Levi with a complicated expression. He had been paying attention to the news about Edward Wabel since that tragic accident. So when he learned that Levi had cut off Edward Wabel's arm, his view of Levi would naturally change. Of course, the only reason why a strong-armed Marine like Zephyr didn't see Levi 193 take action immediately was because no Marine on the scene suffered any casualties due to Levi's arrival. Including Sengoku and Garp, they also realized that Levi's coming to contact Marine this time was not for the purpose of starting a war, so they all secretly breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. Unconsciously, the four of them were extremely unwilling to break up with Levi and start another war. The reason is probably because of the terrifying power released by the sword technique that cut off Marineford. Meet again. Levi slowly descended from the sky, his eyes full of calmness as he glanced at the people behind Sengoku as a greeting. Seeing that Levi really had no intention of taking action. The solemnity in Sengoku's expression became even deeper, and there was no slack or relaxation in his eyes when looking at Levi. Garp stood next to Sengoku and scratched his head, but he didn't know how to speak in this atmosphere. He stood behind the two of them, his lowered eyes flashing with light of thought. Zephyr, on the other hand, stood in front of Aizen as always, staring at Levi without the previous entanglement in his eyes. As a former admiral who has made great achievements in the world, he will not forget his identity and responsibility just because of the small fluctuation in his heart. No matter why Levi is here. This time, he will protect his students.